That's very bullish because the smaller tiered banks are what provides the capital for small business growth,
right.
And that's the mother's milk of the economy.
Absolutely. Jeff Stout, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Jeff Stout, good friend of the program, Capital Wealth Planning Chief Investment Strategist. So, Tom, interesting, it's this is the rally people are just afraid of, but, at least Jeff sees some upside here.
The charm of Mr. Stout, and there's a number of other guests we have, is they actually put the miles on, the frequent flyer miles. And it's not the romance of going to Tokyo to, see Kyoto or whatever. And,
right.
And in the trenches of this, folks, Paul and I try to work at this every day. It's just about being invested, and it's just about not losing money. And as I said at the beginning of that discussion, Paul, it's been an extraordinary 2019. I mean, I'm not even in year-end mode. Are you?
No, I'm not in year-end mode.
I'm not in year-end mode. And
I'm just trying to get through the Fed meeting today.
I think I got a chart of the year. It has to do with the tariffs in China. Futures up 3, Dow futures up 10. Worst thing in 2019. Steve Lukather says Toto retired. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Shares of General Electric are surging before the opening bell after the manufacturer raised its 2019 cash flow forecast for the second straight quarter, giving CEO Larry Culp's turnaround effort a much-needed lift. Stock futures point to a higher open this morning. S&P futures are up 3, NASDAQ futures up 19, Dow futures are up 12. U.S. investors are also assessing the latest economic reports out today. The October payrolls data from ADP shows that companies added more workers to payrolls than expected in October, a gain of 125,000. The ADP report never directly correlates with the Labor Department's monthly employment report, which is due on Friday, but the two measures may diverge more than usual this month, given differences in accounting for the General Motors strike. A separate report out today shows the U.S. economy grew at a better-than-expected 1.9% pace in the third quarter on strength from the consumer. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know, with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President, Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
It's another Wednesday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and explore tropical rainforests. Fly from London Gatwick to Costa Rica with British Airways from £218 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
I tell you what used to be fair, lunch. You used to walk past pubs and just see people laughing and merriment. What happened to those cheery days? I tell you what happened to them. It's been replaced by a pint glass sitting by a computer full of condiments, plastic cutlery, and a pair of chopsticks you use for fishing the noodles out your keyboard. It's just not fair.
At TalkTalk, fairness is important. That's why, unlike some other providers, we offer fixed price plans on our fibre broadband for the entire length of your contract. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Fairer broadband for everyone.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter.
Visit which.co.uk.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin. With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price, just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum terms. Prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. Further terms apply.
Can I have chemo at home?
It's only suitable for a couple of types of
cancer.
When you search one question about cancer, you end up with millions of results which contradict each other. For clear and uncomplicated information, come to Cancer Research UK. Visit us online or give us a call on 0808 800 40 40. Cancer Research UK. Together, we will beat cancer.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Good morning, I'm Karen Moscow, along with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney, and the opening bell brought to you by SEI, with an operating platform designed to support all major asset classes, diverse strategies, and investment vehicles. SEI is redefining wealth management. Learn more at SEIC.com/IMS. Right now, the S&P 500 is little changed to higher. It's up 1.5 points at 3038. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 6 to 27,078, and the Nasdaq's up 0.1% or 6 points to 8282. 10-year Treasury up 4/32, yield 1.82%. The yield on the 2-year 1.63%. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.33% or 19 cents at 55.34 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.2% or $3.30 at 14.94 an ounce. The euro 1.1106 against the dollar. The yen is at 108.93. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thanks so much. Paul Sweeney, sooner than you think, a good Bloomberg function out in Brooklyn with important discussion on technology as well. It's just interesting, Paul, to talk about General Electric as a technology company.
Exactly.
I thought it was a financial company long ago and far away.
Yeah, I think they make turbine engines and jet engines and all those kinds of cool things. But, they had some better than expected results, Tom. And this is a stock and a company that's really been in need of a turnaround here, where they had new CEO coming from Danaher, and some good news this quarter. They had better than expected results, and the big thing is free cash flow. To help us kind of break this down is Karen Ubelhart from Bloomberg Intelligence. She covers all things industrials.
Yeah.
Karen, thanks so much for joining us. And I know the last time you were with us, you said focus on the free cash flow. And sure enough, that's kind of what the company's focusing on here. So it looks like a little bit better story there. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it was better than expected in the third quarter, and they raised it. Power's doing a little bit better. Healthcare's doing better, and lower restructuring costs. They're executing on the restructuring with a little less cash needed. So that was the good news. Also, the two businesses that had to do well are doing extremely well, healthcare and aviation. And Power does look like it's stabilized. It's about break even again, with cash flow a little better.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, I'm looking at some of the backlog and the total orders and things like that. Is there a sense that despite the trade issues slowing global economy, that at least they have a handle on some of these key businesses?
Yeah, well, it's funny because people were asking them about the macro, the global slowdown. They have a lot of long lead time businesses, so they're not really seeing much of a macro headwind at this point. The end markets still look pretty good for the businesses that they remain in. And I think the most important thing, like on the power side, gas Power, which is the business that was the problem, actually had its first positive organic growth quarter in a long time. So
I know this is a story of, de-risking GE Capital and focusing on the balance sheet and things like that. Give us a sense of kind of what kind of progress they're making on the balance sheet?
It continues to shrink. A lot of asset sales to come. They still have $20 billion they're getting from biopharma. They still have another $8 billion they can get out of Baker Hughes. So the wind down of the balance sheet looks pretty good, actually, on GE Capital. They want to get $10 billion in assets lower in GE Capital. They did $3.5 billion so far, and they're on track for the $10 billion this year, with more to go next year.
I don't want to wax historical here, but it is, to be polite, from 2000, a series of lower highs and lower lows. Has Mr. Culp broken that? Is he? Can you say he's broken the trend of debris over, are you ready, Karen, 19 years?
From a stock perspective? Or from a stock perspective. I think, well, first of all,
I don't want you to do buy, hold, sell, but has he broken that trend?
There is the value is there in a lot of the businesses. People were concerned about surprises. I think he's lessening the surprises fairly dramatically, and I think that'll really help solidify the stock.
Okay, but if you X out the garbage and you X out the financial and all that, are you willing to say this thing is trading at a price to EBITDA basis or a traditional metric like that, where you go, Ubelhart stands up and goes, wow?
No, it's hard to even really get what is a sustainable.
You can't get to that. This is critical, folks.
And
you can't get to that ratio.
Yeah, not yet. And the other thing, I think it's got priced in the unknowns. For example, the long-term care insurance reserve. People are like, how big is that? And could that be a huge write-off we don't expect? Well, they sized that one more time. They took another $1 billion reserve there, less than expected. So some of these unknown liabilities, we know that some of the known ones, but some of the unknown ones are starting to get sized as well. So I think that's been built into the price as well. How big could these things that's going to sideswipe us, how big are they? He's helping us manage that.
Does organic revenue growth, I mean, they trotted out the famous GE headline. I'm going to suggest they invented the idea of internal ex-acquisition revenue growth, mid-single digits. Is that like a legacy to the past, or is that a tangible headline?
No, a lot of the multi-industrials, because they're always buying and selling assets, they do tend to take out acquisitions, divestitures, and FX, just so you can see how is our business really growing. And that 7% is real. Aerospace is growing at 10, and aviation is growing at 5. And those are the two key drivers. So that's a real organic growth number.
So, Karen, I'm looking at the earnings statement, and they're talking about it's still early in a multi-year transformation, but 2020 and 2021 will be, quote, meaningfully better. Is that enough for investors that you talk to say, all right, maybe it's time to start taking a look at this thing?
Yeah, I think that if we exit the year with a decent 2020, again, cash flow forecast, we know we're going to get growth in 2 of the 3 major businesses, and they're going to get that biopharma money in the next couple of months, and the balance sheet's going to look dramatically better. That's $20 billion. Yeah. So then I think you can look forward and not, and feel like a lot of the mess has been cleaned up.
How's guidance look like in the Ubelhart world? In the Ubelhart space,
on the EPS, who knows on cash flow? I mean, it's looking
across all your companies. It looked pretty good.
Oh, it's really interesting. Across all the companies, organic growth was bad, but the margins actually held up generally. That's a surprise in this quarter. People were worried to the downside, and people lowered a little bit, but frankly, the margins were better than expected.
Karen, thank you so much. Karen Ubelhart with us with an update there on Generous Electric, and also, of course, on all her good work in industrials as well. We're open for trading, and it's got a Fed feel, Paul. It looks like, that Thursday in August where, you're at the beach and Karen's up in the mountains somewhere hiking around, and I'm working.
You're working. Yeah, you're in the studio.
It's just got that summer, late August feel to it, doesn't it? Fed Day.
Yeah, Fed Day. That's exactly right. And I think people are going to be, as we've talked about, really focusing not so much on the rate cut per se, but on some of the language coming from Chairman Powell and, as it relates to kind of looking forward. Is it one and done-ish, or is it the beginning of perhaps a little bit of a easing policy?
I'll give credit to Ira Jersey. I'm not sure who said it now in my foggy memory, but we should anticipate dissents today as well. Paul, that's been frequent, and there was a time, I think of Lawrence Meyer in his wonderful short book, A Term at the Fed, where in the Greenspan era there were no dissents. Dissents were not cool, and I'm not going to say we're on the edge of the United Kingdom, but it is something to watch for at that 2 p.m. release, the level of descent, 0 or 1 or 2 or heaven forbid 3 people descending would be extraordinary.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think it's a data-dependent Fed, so there's, I guess when you look at that data, you could come to some different conclusions. But overall, the consensus is for a cut here and maybe, one more.
Yeah, well, we will see. Paul Sweeney, Bloomberg, Sooner Than You Think, an important technology conference in a good technology geography that is Brooklyn. It's a small burb east of Manhattan. They would suggest that Manhattan is a small burb west of Brooklyn. The market open and -40. Stay with us. This is Bloomberg.
Let's get national headlines right now with Michael Barr. Michael.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, Tom. The House impeachment inquiry prepares for more witnesses today. Yesterday, an Army officer who serves on President Trump's National Security Council told investigators he twice raised concerns over the push to have Ukraine investigate Joe Biden. And some Democrats and Republicans got into a shouting match while interviewing Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman. Democrats accused the GOP of trying to reveal the anonymous whistleblower who started the impeachment inquiry. Vindman was derided by some GOP congressionals as, quote, disloyal. Congressman Jim Jordan spoke to reporters on Capitol Hill this morning and says Republicans have their own wish list of witnesses, including a certain 6.
The complaint itself from the whistleblower, he talks about the more than half a dozen officials, U.S. officials, who informed the basis of his complaint. We kind of want to know who those people are so we can talk to them, determine their credibility, determine do they have a bias, what was their motive.
More than 1 million people have been hit with yet another power outage in California as PG&E tries to prevent more wildfires by implementing a third round of sweeping blackouts in a week. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Tom.
And Michael Barr, Nationals. He's picked it here. Game 7. I'm
going in my wallet. I'm going to make.
Why?
I'm going to book it.
Ted Williams, manager, Washington Senators, a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only reason why. Nationals, you heard it here. This is Bloomberg.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Hey y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
It's another Wednesday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Reach the top of Mount Teede or relax on a sandy beach. Fly from London Gatwick to Tenerife with British Airways. with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £349 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Fall in love with the brand new iPhone 11 at Tesco Mobile. Take amazing photos with Apple's best ever ultra-wide lens camera. You can get the iPhone 11 for just $37.75 a month with no additional upfront costs. What's not to love? Search Tesco Mobile or visit us in store. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage contract. Subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Drivers, it's time to rise up and step up to a new Vauxhall SUV. With £4,000 guaranteed scrappage or part exchange value with 4.9% APR representative. Drivers, it's time to trade up. Search Vauxhall Trade Up or visit your local Vauxhall retailer now. T's and C's apply. Trade-in car must be registered in your name for at least 90 days. Conditional sale and personal contract purchase only. Subject to status 18+ Vauxhall Finance. Other deposit contributions may be available if you don't have a trade-in vehicle. Ends 26th of November.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin. With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price, just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum terms. Prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. Further terms apply.
Can I have chemo at home?
It's only suitable for a couple of types of cancer.
When you search one question about cancer, you end up with millions of results which contradict each other. For clear and uncomplicated information, come to Cancer Research UK. Visit us online or give us a call on 0808 800 40 40. Cancer Research UK. Together, we will beat cancer.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
As a full House vote on impeachment proceedings looms in Washington, House committees will hear more testimony today in the investigation. Manu Raju's on Capitol Hill with a preview of what two State Department officials are expected to say.
What we're expected to hear, the lawmakers will hear today, is more concerns being raised about the role that Rudy Giuliani played. This has been a consistent theme throughout, that the president's personal attorney worked outside of official channels to pursue Ukrainian policy, to push for those investigations into the president's political rivals.
The U.S. economy slowed to a modest growth rate of 1.9% in the summer as consumer spending downshifted and businesses continued to trim their investments in response to trade war uncertainty and a weakening global economy. The Federal Reserve is set to cut its benchmark interest rate today for a third time this year to help sustain the U.S. economic expansion. I'm John Trout.
Carol Massey.
Where do IPOs fit into all of this?
Jason Kelly.
Talk to us about the market technology business.
Bloomberg Business Week.
What are the drivers underneath there?
Have a better week. Weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and U.S. stocks are moving lower amid the latest batch of corporate earnings and data showing the U.S. economy remained on solid footing last quarter. And we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. We are seeing treasuries climb and the dollar flat ahead of the Federal Reserve's rate decision. Right now, the 10-year treasury is up 7/30 seconds, yield 1.81%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.62%. The S&P 500 is down about 1/10%, down 2 points to 3034. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, little change, down 18 points to 27,054, and the Nasdaq down 1/10%, or 11 points to 8265. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.5% or 26 cents at 55.28 a barrel. COMEX gold up 1/3% or $4.70 at 14.9530 an ounce. The euro 1.1112 against the dollar, the yen 108.89. General Electric up 10.5% after raising its forecast. Mattel soaring up 17.5%. after its sales beat analyst estimates. Apple and Facebook report earnings after the close today, and the U.S. economy rose 1.9% in the third quarter, and a report on private hiring showed solid gains, with both the data sets topping analyst estimates. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thanks so much. Again, right on the screen here, a little bit of a Fed spiteliness, but a quiet tape this morning, 27,049 on the Dow. The David Rubenstein peer-to-peer preview, always brought to you by Wells Fargo Technology Banking, and the Tech Industry Challenge is what you make of it. Great solutions and get solutions with Wells Fargo. David Rubenstein, always in good conversation, and this time with a gentleman who in alternative investments in the hedge fund business has done better than good. Here is David Rubenstein on fiscal space with Ray Dalio.
On fiscal policy, there's no room for additional tax cuts. Do you agree? Because we already have such a big deficit, so you couldn't really cut taxes anymore. Or do you not agree with that?
I believe that in terms of spending, that probably there will be increases in spending. That probably will not be well funded. And so now we're in, and when you ask about that, I think we have a political question, and that's which is relevant to also the markets. Between now and the elections, we're probably going to have very different policies. Policies maybe more of the left and policies more of the right. More extreme policies, greater polarity, and the choice will be greater.
Ray Dalio in conversation with David Rubenstein, again in support of peer-to-peer. David Rubenstein, Ray Dalio has an interesting place within investment, within making money at Bridgewater, and then, of course, all of his book writing and efforts as well. Who is the Ray Dalio you spoke to?
Ray Dalio is a person who came from very modest circumstances. His father was a jazz musician on Long Island, and he was not a great high school student, did better in college, went to Harvard Business School, had some modest success and then some failures, and then he ultimately built the biggest hedge fund in the world, now managing $160 billion. He is still the co-chief investment officer of that fund, and he is given up the title of co-CEO, but he's still the chief investment officer with two other individuals. He has a general view that certain principles have guided his life, and he wrote a book about that called Principles, and it's sold so far 2 million copies, which is a lot for a business book. It's quite interesting, goes through his life, but also the principles that have governed his life, and everybody seems to have admired him greatly in recent years because he not only has built this gigantic hedge fund, but during the Great Recession, he outperformed virtually everybody else in the hedge fund world, and that gave him a great deal of public attention that he had not had before.
Yeah, well explained. His charm, David Rubenstein, is he has a caution, but it's not a gloom. I do not consider him part of the gloom crew. Parse that for us. His reticence or caution, his worry about our financial system versus he's not overly gloomy.
Well, he has the view that, as he just heard on the tape, that we probably will have some more spending that we aren't going to really pay for through additional taxes. But so far, his view is that global growth is not going to stop this year or next year. There's always a chance of recession, but his general view is that we'll probably have low growth for another year or so, and he's not as gloomy as some people who would say that the numbers would suggest we're going to go lower than he thinks it will be the case.
With David Rubenstein, the Carlyle Group, in support of peer-to-peer, a conversation with Ray Dalio. Let's bring in Paul Sweeney at the Bloomberg conference in Brookline. Paul?
Thanks so much, Tom. So, David, given what he was talking about, the greater or increased polarization that he expects going forward, do you get the sense that, just broadly speaking, his view of the United States is more positive or perhaps a little bit more negative?
I'd say it's generally positive, but he's very cautious, as he should be, because of concerns that exist in the markets. And clearly, when he talked about the polarization, that was before the most recent schism in Washington dealing with impeachment, because we taped that show a few weeks before that arose. I think that he's generally optimistic, but he's cautious, as anybody would be who's managing $160 billion.
Exactly. In terms of fiscal policy, I've read that he expects increased fiscal policy going forward. You get a sense that he believes that's the way we should go to try to drive growth, or is there other areas that he thinks that the U.S. policy should be?
Well, he thinks that if we're going to keep growing spending, we need to pay for it in some ways, and therefore taxes might have to be adjusted in some way. I think he's generally of the view that the Fed is doing a reasonable job in this situation, but he doesn't claim to have all the answers. He generally likes to be very, very analytical and look at many, many, many factors. And you have to think about it, and somebody in the world is going to be the best hedge fund manager at any given time, and right now I think he's generally seen as the most successful hedge fund manager, if not of all time, certainly in the last 10 years or so, because of what he's done with his very large hedge fund. It's one thing to manage $1 billion and do very well. To manage $160 billion and do well is not that easy.
Yeah, exactly. It's do you think he's taking more risk with his portfolio right now? Because, Tom and I, we speak to a lot of fund managers, and, I think probably more than not, they're saying, you know what, it's better to get a little bit cautious. We're 10 years into this economic cycle. We got a lot of geopolitical risk out there. Let's pull in our horns a little bit.
Well, I don't know exactly how he's doing his portfolio. It's very complicated. He looks at many, many factors, and he has a very complicated way of doing it. It's not easily replicable, and maybe that's why he's got a kind of secret sauce. But I think increasingly, as he explains his views, people see how he's done so well, because he's very analytical, very smart. He's written a number of books, and I think people listen to him.
David, we are in celebration as well, not only of peer-to-peer and your work with Ray Dalio this week, but a new effort by you, and this is a most serious book, The American Story, Conversations with Master Historians. And within it, David, am I right that this is evening sessions you've done with our people of Congress, where you plant in front of them someone who actually understands our nation's history?
Yes. For the last 6 years, I've hosted with the Library of Congress a dinner for members of Congress. We get 200-plus members of Congress coming each time.
Wow.
And we have the most famous historians in the United States, and I do an interview of them, and members of Congress get to ask their questions as well. And it's bipartisan. I encourage the members to sit with people from the opposite party, and they do, in the opposite house. And it's a good time for them to get to know each other, because they don't know each other that well in this kind of bipartisan social setting, but they also learn about American history.
Walter Isaacson on Benjamin Franklin. What was that like?
Well, Benjamin Franklin is one of the great Renaissance men of our time, and obviously Walter Isaacson is too. Benjamin Franklin basically became the most famous American before George Washington because of his scientific inventions. But he was a person who was wisely respected for his intellect, and he was the only person who signed the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Treaty of Paris ending the Revolutionary War.
Very good. David Rubenstein, thank you so much. And, of course, we congratulate Mr. Rubenstein on his philanthropy to the nation, wrapped around our nation's history. And now he has a new effort, The American Story, Conversations with Master Historians, including an important, poignant chapter with Cokie Roberts, the late Cokie Roberts, as well. As well, peer-to-peer conversations, David Rubenstein with Ray Dalio this week. You can see it on Bloomberg Television, 9 p.m., and hear it tomorrow on Bloomberg Radio at 5 p.m. as well. Paul, in Brookline, sooner than you think. Brooklyn, I should say. Brookline.
That's right.
I'm thinking Boston.
Thinking Boston.
Brooklyn, New York, Brookline, Boston. I got it. Okay, what do you got tonight out in Brooklyn?
Yeah, it's great setup here, Tom. We're at the Williamsburg Savings Bank in Brooklyn. Just a spectacular setting here, and we have the Bloomberg Sooner Than You Think conference. We're talking about technology and seeing how technology is impacting businesses, consumers, and just our general way of life, and some of the regulatory and social issues surrounding technology. So it's kind of the broad gamut. So a great variety of speakers here. So we'll dig into some of those big tech issues.
And a perfect day for this, folks. Of course, technology out front. Some of those earnings, Alphabet, Google out the other day, Facebook and Apple. Look for that tonight. Bloomberg Radio will have important coverage, not only the headlines and they come out and what the stock's doing, but looking at the tension on the conference calls of these technology giants. David Wilson giving us perspective tomorrow, no doubt, on that as well. It is a Fed day, and they're always different. And I really must say, this Fed day of a hawkish cut could be extraordinary. It may be a complete snooze, but I'm guessing not, as Chairman Powell models, informs the discussion, the tone, if you will, forward to the December 11th meeting. He is central banker of the world, Madame Lagarde, with her first meeting, ECB, December 12th, the day after. But we're focused today on this October 30 Fed meeting. Our Michael McKee in the press conference with Chairman Powell. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
It's another Wednesday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and enjoy stunning white sand and crystal blue sea. Fly from London Gatwick to the Maldives with British Airways from £300 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin. With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price, just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum terms. Prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. Further terms apply.
Capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Is there any bank right now in the U.S. that you think is a buy?
Do you think Chairman Powell has lost the market?
Jeff Bezos is no dope. What's the big ka-ching?
The big question, I think, for investors is free cash flow.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
The U.S. tariffs actually hurt both China and the U.S.
Large strategics are looking to either buy or invest in innovation.
Soybeans and corn have been basically at or below the cost of production for about 4 or 5 years.
What we see more bonds, more yield.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning and happy Fed Day. We are broadcasting live from the Sooner Than You Think conference in Brooklyn, hosted by Bloomberg. Really interesting docket of guests we have coming up. We're going to be speaking with Tristan Harris. He is long thought of as the ethicist of Silicon Valley. We'll also be speaking with a whistleblower from Cambridge Analytica, who is the subject of a Netflix documentary. A whole host of phenomenal guests. So that is all coming up. Right now, though, let's head over to John Tucker and get some price moves. John.
Hey, Lisa, not a lot of movement in the stocks right now as investors wait for a rate decision from the central bank. The Fed widely expected to lower rates for a third time this year. Tony Crescenzi is a portfolio manager at PIMCO.
Markets looking at the Fed, and the Fed's looking back at the markets, and they have to mirror what the markets are doing. So the probability of what the markets have in for a hike is 90%. That's too high for the Fed to say no today.
Well, on the earnings front, Yum Brands, C.H. Robinson, Molson Coors, all slumping after reporting their results. General Electric getting a pop after raising its forecast. Mattel soaring. They had a sales beat. And Apple and Facebook, they're going to report after the close of regular trading in New York today. The U.S. economy rising 1.9% in the third quarter. We also had a private payrolls report showing solid gains with both data sets topping estimates today. Right now, the S&P 500 3 points lower. That's down 0.1%. We're at 3,033. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 8 points at 27,063. The Nasdaq Composite Index 14 points lower. That's down 0.2 at 8,261. And the 10-year Treasury yield at 1.81%. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day. Right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
John Tucker, thank you so much. Market Drivers is brought to you by New Jersey Institute of Technology, offering hands-on learning at the largest marketplace in New Jersey for those working in manufacturing and mechatronics. More at njit.edu/manufacturing. Well, a quiet day in terms of the indices, but lots of action going on in equity markets, what with a big earnings week. To get the latest, we welcome Bloomberg Stocks Editor Dave Wilson. Dave, what are you looking at?
Well, I mean, you've got two sides of the story, as you mentioned, today. And General Electric really jumps out in terms of what's higher at this point. I mean, given that the shares are up more than 11%, it's all about cash flow at GE and what the company had to say after its third quarter results came out. Went over very well on that score. I mean, they increased their forecast for free cash flow, in other words, money available to do things like repay debt from their industrial businesses, they're now looking at possibly $2 billion in free cash flow for the year. They had only been anticipating maybe $1 billion tops, so basically doubling that estimate. So, that going over very well. In fact, the gains now approaching 12% in GE. And on the other side of the coin, it's sort of an interesting, sort of perhaps trade-related story in C.H. Robinson Worldwide. Not exactly a household name like GE. They're involved in logistics, moving goods from one place to another. And the shares are down 13.5%. And it's all about, third quarter numbers not living up to projections. We've certainly seen that industrial companies to some extent have struggled with trade and tariffs and everything else. But you look at Robinson's numbers, earnings coming up short by the widest margin in 2.5 years. Relative to analyst estimates. And then you look at revenue, similar story there, fourth straight quarter that they came up short of projections. So, another example of how, the trade situation is sort of hanging over a whole lot of companies, even as, in general, earnings are coming in better than analysts expected.
It's interesting because you do have, on one hand, trade concerns waning. On the other hand, geopolitically, there are questions and pockets of unrest that have been brewing. We do want to just bring to you some news. Breaking news, Chile is canceling the APEC summit in Santiago next month. This, according to Piñera, and this, of course, comes on the heels of a whole host of protests, the worst bout of unrest that the country has had since the Pinochet era back in the 70s and in late afterwards in the 80s. So a bit of a concern there. And you're looking at actually the MSCI Emerging Market Currency Index having its biggest one-day drop so far today in more than a month. So definitely some concerns coming up there.
And it raises a question, what does this mean for the trade deal?
Yes.
That was expected to be signed there.
Absolutely, because President Xi Jinping and President Trump were supposedly going to be meeting there. So the question is, are they going to find a new locale, or are they just going to forego that meeting? I do want to get your sense of some other earnings that we got out, Dave Wilson. We did get Deutsche Bank earnings and we got Credit Suisse earnings. Deutsche Bank shares down more than 7%. I'm looking at the ADRs right now, and Credit Suisse shares down nearly 3%. Really a tale of two banking sectors, European versus the U.S. What do we learn that makes this sector look more bearish in Europe?
Well, what it comes down to is there's concern that a bad situation may get worse, at least to some extent for these companies. You have Credit Suisse, being cautious in light of the U.S.-China trade dispute, in light of Brexit, and, those kinds of issues. They're concerned that, companies are going to hold back from going ahead, perhaps with investments, spending plans, and that means less business on the investment banking side or on the, deal making and security sales. So, that's definitely an issue, and it's affecting Deutsche Bank as well. They're having trouble with raising revenue at this point, which is saying something as they get out of stock trading and, cut workers. In an attempt to kind of pare the expense side of the business. The revenue really isn't there. So, it's kind of a saga for these banks, especially as they live through negative interest rates in Europe. It basically makes their job harder in terms of just making money. So, put it all together, and, the situation is definitely a tough one over there.
Well, Dave, Lisa and I are at a Bloomberg Tech Conference, the Sooner Than You Think conference, and so we have some big tech names after the close tonight, Apple and Facebook. I think it's interesting. There's going to be some pressure on certainly Facebook to kind of continue to articulate kind of how they're viewing the regulatory oversight of their industry.
Well, sure. Then again, you look at Facebook shares; they're up 43% this year. So, yeah, they have issues to work through.
That's nothing compared to Apple, right? Apple's up almost 50%, I believe, year to date.
Well, let's see. At the moment, it's about 55%.
Woo, look at that. So Facebook's shares are slacking in comparison. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I suppose. Apple's above $1.1 trillion in market value at this point. So
$1.1 trillion iPhone.
Yes.
Something like that. And it's just ahead of Microsoft. You've had a back and forth going between those two companies lately as opposed to, what's the biggest in the world by market value. Facebook is about half that. Still, above $500 billion, not shabby. It's down a bit today in advance of its results, and Apple essentially little changed, although it's just a touch higher at the moment.
The interesting thing for Apple will be, again, giving people some sense of the growth of their services business, as that is kind of going to have to be the growth driver for this company going forward.
Well, although you say that, but actually the orders for their new iPhone picking up, and I think that, this is sort of the key. Can Apple provide enough with respect to new cameras and new gadgets to entice people to pay for another iPhone? You're looking at your
I'm looking at my
now.
older, I think it's a 6S, and but I have to admit that you're right. The iPhone 11, they ramped up production by an additional 75 million units. So.
I will just say that when my friends take pictures of my children, their photographs are much better than mine, which are taken from an old iPhone that has a cracked screen. I'm just saying that there is that.
Exactly.
Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor, thank you so much for being with us, joining us from our Interactive Broker Studios. We are broadcasting from the Bloomberg Tech Conference sooner than you think. Really excited to talk about the ethics of the changing nature in the way people communicate with one another. And I got to say, as a parent, that is of the utmost concern that we all have and discuss on a regular basis. Right now, let's head over to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager there with world and national headlines. Nathan.
And Lisa, I want to get you more on the breaking news that just crossed the Bloomberg terminal moments ago. Chilean President Sebastián Piñera says his country will not host the APEC summit that was scheduled for next month after a wave of protests and riots in the capital, Santiago. Piñera has also canceled the COP25 environmental conference that was set for December. Now, there had been talk that Presidents Trump and Xi of China would sign their Phase 1 trade deal at the APEC summit in Chile next month. It is unclear now whether that means any implications for U.S.-China trade. More closed-door testimony coming today in the House impeachment investigation. Lawmakers are hearing from Catherine Croft and Christopher Anderson, both Ukraine experts at the State Department. Anderson plans to tell lawmakers that former National Security Advisor John Bolton raised concerns about President Trump's lawyer Rudy Giuliani acting as a point person with Ukraine. Boeing Chief Executive Dennis Muhlenberg faces a second day of questioning by members of the House Transportation Committee. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports from Capitol Hill.
Nathan, committee investigators have been plowing through voluminous records. Chairman Peter DeFazio says he knows of at least one case where a Boeing manager implored his boss, a vice president of the company who was managing 737 MAX development, to shut down the production line because of safety concerns months before the first of two fatal crashes. As on the Senate side yesterday, members will question the system of oversight that permits Boeing to be the inspector of its own work, trusted by federal regulators. Muhlenberg would not endorse a bill to overturn that system. Nathan?
All right, thank you, Irv. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
We live in an era where research, production, and decisions are no longer made for just one place.
If the U.S. and China are saying good things, the markets can go about their business.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
Are you seeing a lot more buying power on the part of younger people in China?
Financial news made in Asia for use everywhere.
Can we expect more opening of the Chinese onshore bond markets?
Tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
My mother was always very active and independent, and she was familiar with her neighborhood. But one day, she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. She wasn't even really sure where she was at.
It's important for you to talk to someone about it. I felt so much better after my son told me, Mom, we'll figure it out.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
The market's in focus every business day. The P&L Podcast with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz.
Are there some sectors that you want to have more or less exposure to?
What's behind this engine of gains?
Analysis of the day's Wall Street action.
The U.S. market looks relatively safe.
From Bloomberg Intelligence, Bloomberg Opinion, and influential newsmakers.
Ward McCarthy joins us right now.
P&L with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
My name is Hunter Hayes. I know myself, and I know my buzzed warning signs. One shot is about knowing my limits, or not necessarily knowing my limits.
I start with one shot to have a good time.
One of the signs that I'm starting to feel a little buzz is when I start solving not only my own problems, but the entire world's problems. When I know I'm going out, I know I'm going to start with calling for a ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Are you interested?
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. We dropped off our Christmas shopping at the hotel. Then it was off to be spellbound at the Theatre Royal Bath. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
It's another Wednesday afternoon. Yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and relax with 365 beautiful beaches.
So yes, sir, what would you like to have?
Fly from London Gatwick to Antigua with British Airways from £223 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March. Why is Lizzie going rental for Fizzy Haze? Is it because her flat is so beautiful and spacious? Snazzy! Or has roof terrace, garden and party room? Surprising! Or because it's 18 minutes to Paddington? Easy! With friendly staff on hand to take any deliveries? Amazing! Or just because her fuzzy friend can live there too? Find your new home at fizzyhaze.com. Fizzy Living. Reinventing renting.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Witch Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Take 78.
Enjoy our unbelievable Super Saver deal with 2 Co-op British ranch steaks and skinny fries for only £4.
Yep, you went over the top again. Take 79.
Our latest Super Saver deal. Co-op. It's what we do. Normally £7.50, subject to availability, participating stores. Offer ends 19th of November.
The B&Q 3 for 2 offer is now on, including an unmissable 3 for 2 on all paint, such as Dulux, Valspar and Farrow & Ball. For this show-stopping deal, hurry to B&Q. You can do it when you're 3 for 2 it. Every third item per single transaction in the send-in price order free. Offer ends November 3rd. See DIY.com.
This autumn, as the nights draw in, beat the cold with Now TV. Curl up with the latest blockbusters, including Bohemian Rhapsody and Hotel Mumbai. Plus, with over 40 new movies added each month, from Aquaman to How to Train Your Dragon 3, Now TV's got you covered, wherever you feel like watching. Get cozy with the latest and best movies for just $11.99 a month. Search Now TV today. 18 plus month passes auto-renews unless cancelled. Terms apply.
Now the 3-1. And Springer hits it in the air, deep to left field, and you can kiss it goodbye.
MLB fans, you can hear every call of the 2019 World Series on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball's hit well. Left field, high and deep, that's got a chance, score!
The action concludes today with a winner-take-all Game 7. Will the Houston Astros or Washington Nationals be crowned as World Series champion? Listen live at 8 Eastern to find out. The 2019 World Series is on TuneIn Premium. Hey NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you have unlimited access to every team and every game in the league. Listen live as it happens or on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long. Search NFL today.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash on a day when there's not much movement in the major averages right now. They are mixed ahead of the Fed decision. We'll have that at 2 p.m. Wall Street time today. The Fed widely expected to once again cut interest rates. Chile has canceled the APEC summit in Santiago scheduled for next month. We wrote that a little earlier. At this point, it's not sure how that's going to impact the U.S.-China trade front. President Trump was supposed to meet with China's president at the summit. S&P 500, 2 points lower right now, 3,034. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 15 points, 27,086. The NASDAQ Composite Index 10 points lower. We're at 82.66. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, Lisa and I are broadcasting today from Bloomberg's Sooner Than You Think conference in Brooklyn. Really cool lineup of people talking about technology, how it's impacting businesses, how it's impacting society, how it's impacting consumers. Our first guest we're really psyched to chat with, Tristan Harris. He is at the Center for Humane Technology. He's a co-founder there and executive director, former design ethicist at Google. I'm not sure what that is, but we'll find out. But what's really cool, he's been called, quote, the closest thing Silicon Valley has to a conscience, unquote. So let's just start there, Tristan. When I think about the business model of Silicon Valley, whether it's Google or Facebook or Amazon, I don't necessarily feel like, they're there to just generate advertising revenue.
Right.
So that's not necessarily consistent with having a conscience, is it?
Right. Well, I mean, you ask, first of all, what is the business model of these services that we get for free? For free. I mean, how much have you paid for your Facebook account recently?
Exactly.
Zero. So how are they worth more than $500 billion? Well, someone's getting paid. It's because we're the resource being sold. And somehow they tend to deny this, but the business model is treating human beings almost like we domesticated cows for their milk and their meat to get the most out of them. They're a new kind of cow. We've become domesticated by attention capitalism. So in other words, in the same way that in industrial capitalism, a tree is worth more dead than alive, a whale is worth more dead than alive, in the attention capitalist model, a human being is worth more if they're outraged, addicted, narcissistic, polarized, and disinformed, because that means that the system is being good at keeping people in the attention economy. And attention capitalism is always demanding cheaper and cheaper ways to generate human attention. So if you think about you guys, it costs a lot of money to pay Bloomberg reporters and journalists to do the deep coverage and fact-checking and all that stuff. That's a really expensive way of generating attention.
Wouldn't it be? We're expensive.
I'm saying you're very expensive. But
carry on.
It would be a lot cheaper if we, instead of paying all these journalists, just got each of the regular citizens just to trade links about stuff that they're seeing on the internet and generate the same amount of human attention, take all the attention away from the newspaper publishers, drop the revenues of the newspaper publishers, and then create more and more of our information environment out of our social affirmation. It's affirmation, not information. And this has been poisoning our information ecology that is the fuel for our democracy. So it's almost like the Flint water supply of information is flowing into our brains. It's more and more about clickbait, less and less fact-check stuff, more and more salacious stuff, more and more distortion. At a time when we need the best, most accurate sense-making, we have created an environment that's diminishing and downgrading our sense-making. And we call this sort of human downgrading, which is the climate change of culture. That these effects are not separate. The shortening of attention spans, mass narcissism, why does everyone care about being as famous as possible and how competing on how many followers they have, outragification, polarization, radicalization, conspiracy theories, all of these effects are connected.
So I guess it sounds like the fundamental business models of the Facebooks of the world are inconsistent with some of the more constructive outcomes that you're looking for. Is that accurate?
That's correct, yeah. And the reason it's so, there's always a tension between business interests and public interests. There's always going to be that tension. But in urban planning, we have zoning laws. There's like the commercial zone and then there's the human zone. But when it comes to tech, it's actually invading your children's development. So 6 hours a day kids spend on screens, and that's being run by private companies with private incentives. They're not evil, they're good people, but they're trapped almost like a hostage in a hostage video by their business model, which is the gun pointed at their head.
So is there anything that could be done to diminish these bad effects that you're outlining, either on a regulatory standpoint or otherwise, given that it's the business themselves?
Right. Yeah, it's very much like asking Exxon to not be Exxon. And so there's this big existential question about how we do this. We're a nonprofit in San Francisco. We work full-time on policy, mobilizing the internal tech employees who, by the way, that's one of the biggest vectors for change is when you're inside of Facebook or YouTube and you see that what I just laid out is true, you don't want to be participating in poisoning the information environment or ruining the next generation. Many of the people in technology don't let their own kids use social media. If they thought it was genuinely good, they wouldn't believe that. But the interesting thing about saying this is, the thing that gives me hope is the Facebook letter that just came out 2 days ago. Facebook's own employees said, this is our company, and we're demanding a better Facebook ads policy than allowing this automated political ad thing where anybody can lie, which is what Zuckerberg had put out there. So that's actually exciting because the employees are the fastest vector for change, followed by regulation. We need regulation, but that's going to take longer. So we have to start improving the system. The best way to do that is getting the employees to basically rebel from the inside. Not because they're activists and want to hold up their pitchforks, but because they're actually honestly seeing the issues about what needs to change.
You think that, okay, so we had that letter from Facebook, as you mentioned. What else? Have you seen other examples like that?
We've been working on these issues for about 8 years, starting when I was a design ethicist at Google. The reason I'm optimistic about that case, I left Google after 2.5 years because I couldn't get change from the inside. I left to try to create a public conversation, and since then, what we've seen is as that public conversation has grown, more and more people on the inside have been more empowered to make more changes. And so, it's not perfect yet. It's still asking, it's like you're slowly trying to convert Exxon from being a total oil company to being a carbon capture company. That's a really hard thing to do. There's a big existential question of can you turn a duck into a chicken once its DNA is already baked? We don't have CRISPR.
The answer is no.
The answer is no.
Yeah.
That's right.
We have an answer to that one.
Right. So, then there's the antitrust model where you cut the duck up into a bunch of pieces and then you can replace it. And you roast it, and then you can have some new replacement animals will take its place, and dinner while you're having it.
Tristan Harris, really interesting. Thank you. And as I got to say, I keep saying this. I don't know why I keep bringing up the parenthood but it's like as a parent, you just this is something you think about all the time. How much do you allow your children to sort of participate in the social structure that's been created? Tristan Harris, we could speak with you all afternoon. Yes. I wish we could. Unfortunately, we can't. Center for Humane Technology co-founder and executive director, former design ethicist for Google, the conscience of Silicon Valley, sitting right with us. Thank you so much for being here and being at the Sooner Than You Think conference in Brooklyn. I'm Lisa Abramowitz with Paul Sweeney, and this is Bloomberg Markets.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks edging lower this morning. The Federal Reserve decision is a key event for investors today. Policymakers are expected to lower interest rates for a third straight meeting. That decision will be announced 2 p.m. New York time. It's a potential deal that could reshape the global auto industry. Fiat Chrysler and the parent of French automaker Peugeot, PSA, have confirmed that they're exploring a combination. Automakers have been facing tremendous pressure to combine forces as they battle through the trade war, a global slowdown, and the expensive shift to electric cars. Fast food giant Yum Brands posted sales that trailed estimates last quarter. Pizza Hut struggled to attract more diners as rivals ramp up delivery and mobile options. And Samsung has teased its next generation Galaxy Fold design, a mini clamshell phone that folds from top to bottom rather than from the sides. The company didn't provide details on when it would start selling the device. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions. What if you...
It's another Wednesday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Experience Mexican culture and relax by the Caribbean Sea. Fly from London Gatwick to Cancun with British Airways from £275 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Witch Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
London. Switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Will cancer affect my sex life?
Your sex drive can disappear. The side effects may stop you.
Sex life can easily stay.
When you search one question about cancer, you end up with millions of results which contradict each other. For clear and uncomplicated information, come to Cancer Research UK. Visit us online or give us a call on 0808 800 40 40. Cancer Research UK. Together, we will beat cancer.
Watford, it's chilly outside, and you're staying in with your feet up, and they can stay up. Because with Hive Active Heating, you can set the perfect temperature without even lifting a finger.
Alexa, ask Hive to boost my heating.
And by never having to heat an empty home, you could save up to £120 a year on your heating bill.
Alexa, play my Nice and Toasty playlist.
Search Hive Heating to buy now. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Sean, tell us about your upcoming Shaun the Sheep movie.
Oh yeah, that was a good bit.
Really? I never looked at it that way. Wow, you do your own stunts. Wait, that's my line. See Farmageddon, a Shaun the Sheep movie, as part of your year of endless adventures with Meerkat movies. Oh, spoiler alert. You just gave away the ending.
Qualifying purchase required. Tuesdays or Wednesday. Participating cinemas. Standard ticket only. Cheapest ticket free. One membership for 12 months. Conditions apply.
Hey NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? We've got you covered. With TuneIn Premium, you can hear every NFL game live as it's happening, or catch it later on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long.
Now the 3-1. And Springer hits it in the air, deep to left field, and you can kiss it goodbye.
MLB fans, you can hear every call of the 2019 World Series on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball's hit well. Left field, high and deep. That's got a chance. Score!
The action concludes today with a winner-take-all Game 7. Will the Houston Astros or Washington Nationals be crowned as World Series champion? Listen live at 8 Eastern to find out. The 2019 World Series is on TuneIn Premium.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
We're broadcasting from the Sooner Than You Think conference. Coming up, we'll speak to Brittany Kaiser, co-founder, Digital Asset Trade Association. She worked for Cambridge Analytica before whistleblowing the company's unethical and illegal practices. She's a primary subject of Netflix's Great Hack. We're going to speak to Brittany coming up. But first, let's go to John Tucker for a Bloomberg Business Flash. John.
Yeah, and Paul, not a lot of movement. The major averages right now ahead of an interest rate decision. Federal Reserve Chairman and his colleagues expect to cut interest rates a quarter of a point today for the third straight meeting. But David Rosenberg, he disagrees with a lot of market watchers in saying they won't be on hold after this.
We're just in the early stages of an easing cycle that ultimately will take the funds rate back towards zero and a whole lot of other aggressive policy measures because, my view was that the recessionary pressures were building in the U.S. economy.
Rosenberg is the strategist and economist at Gluskin Sheff. U.S. economic growth slowed in the third quarter, expanding at a 1.9% pace. Household spending offset weakness in the business investment and exports. And payroll provider ADP saying businesses added 125,000 workers in October. That tops the prior month's gain. Services led the increase, and small business hiring looks like that moderated. Right now, the S&P 500 is 4 points lower, 3,032 right now. The Dow down 4 points, 27,068. The Nasdaq Composite Index 11 points lower. We're at 8,264. 10-year yield in the U.S. at 181. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That's your Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
So a lot of people have talked about taxing the rich, certainly increasingly recently, but there is a question of whether that's even possible. Joining us, we're so glad to say, is Justin Fox, a Bloomberg opinion columnist. Justin, you write that perhaps people have made the assumption that it is impossible to tax the rich a little bit too much. Can you explain what you were trying to say?
Well, what I was doing was reacting to Emmanuel Saez and Gabriel Zuckman's new book, which has been getting a whole lot of attention lately, The Triumph of Injustice. And most of the attention has been about their claims about the progressivity or lack thereof of the tax code in the U.S., and there's been tons of debate about that. But the real main point of the book is that you don't need to be as fatalistic as people have been over the past couple decades about finding ways to tax the very wealthy and corporations, because they are able to shelter income in some other country that's a lower tax jurisdiction. That's not inevitable. There are policy decisions that can be made in the U.S. and elsewhere to fight against that.
So, Justin, give us a sense of we know that the wealthiest don't pay their fair share, i.e. whatever the statutory rate is. We know the corporations also don't do that as well. But is there any bipartisan support for saying that they should?
I think with corporations, there clearly is. The issue with corporations is, especially tech companies, but any companies with a lot of intellectual property and global operations, so this is big in pharmaceuticals too, have been able over the past couple of decades to find ways to basically move their income to places where there's little or no tax on it. And there have been all these complicated things that Bloomberg News and others have written about, like the double Irish Dutch sandwich that Google used. And actually, countries are starting to crack down on that a little bit. The OECD, the sort of club of wealthy nations, has a big effort going on, the base erosion and profit shifting program that's now requiring multinational companies to report to tax authorities what they made in each country and how much they paid in tax.
Yeah.
And in the U.S., the 2017 tax bill, even though it cut corporate tax rates a bunch, it actually includes this fallback that there's basically a minimum overall tax you have to pay as a U.S. corporation, even if you found ways to move your income to places where taxes are much lower.
So I guess you were responding to the Saez and Zuckman book. Just to give some perspective, they're UCLA at Berkeley professors, collaborators with Paris-based economist Thomas Piketty, and their work has been used by Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders to discuss some tax plans that justify taxing the ultra wealthy of more than 90% of their wealth. I'm trying to understand. There's one thing of not being able to tax the wealthy. There's another thing of raising the tax rate to a very high level for people of a certain net worth.
Right, and that I don't know what the rates are there. I think you can probably get pretty widespread agreement that it's good to have some sort of wealth tax or maybe imputed wealth tax as a way to catch the fact that somewhere way up in the income distribution, tax rates start going down. And the main reason tax rates start going down way up in the income distribution is because billionaires, most of their income is capital gains, not salaries, and capital gains are taxed at a lower rate. They also have more ability to move income around the world to avoid taxation. And so, that one way to think about wealth taxation is that this fallback to catch people that income taxation misses. The other, and Saez and Zuckman are on this other group, but I would say they want their data and their methods to be used by people all along the spectrum. But they at least somewhat believe in the idea dating back to FDR in the 30s that there's a certain level of wealth or income that's just too high, and so it's better to have punitive taxes so people just never make that much money. And that's definitely where Sanders is headed. The Warren wealth tax is substantially lower than that.
Interesting. So, it's just this tax issue, it won't go away. It's almost seemingly impossible to solve because we've had, administration after administration after administration talk about redistributing the wealth from time to time at different degrees, and it just doesn't really seem to go. Justin Fox, thanks so much for joining us. Bloomberg Opinion, giving us his thoughts on this tax issue, and it's going to come up to the fore as we get to the Democratic primaries, really into the thick of the Democratic primaries, and I think we will see the debate kind of heighten, Lisa, about what is the proper taxation policy for the U.S.?
Yeah, Justin Fox's column was really excellent because it points also to some of the economic research that has suggested that the ideal economic model is actually very low taxes for corporations to foster economic growth. And then this basically challenging that, the research that these UCLA professors have done, saying perhaps that's not the case. The question is, what's in between perhaps not very low tax rates for corporations and something that's potentially prohibitive, right? Yep. I mean, it's sort of where is the scale sliding at a time when you do have very polarized views when it comes to Republicans and Democrats.
Right, yeah, really fascinating piece here by Justin Fox. You can read all the opinion pieces from Bloomberg Opinion at OPIN Go on the terminal and at Bloomberg.com/opinion. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. for World and National Headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan.
Paul, Chile has canceled the APEC summit that was set for next month in Santiago amid a wave of protests and riots. President Sebastián Piñera says his country won't host the UN's climate change conference in December either. President Trump had planned to sign the Phase 1 trade deal with China at next month's APEC summit. Piñera says his government had spoken to other presidents to warn them of the cancellation. Impeachment is getting a rare public airing in the Senate, with President Trump's choice for ambassador to Russia facing a confirmation hearing. Bloomberg's Amy Morris has more on John Sullivan.
Sullivan was the one who told the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, that she was being recalled. Yovanovitch says Sullivan told her she'd done nothing wrong, but that there had been a concerted campaign against her. This is also the first Russia-related hearing in the committee in more than 2 years. In Washington, I'm Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
As for the House impeachment inquiry, lawmakers are behind closed doors with two State Department Ukraine experts, Christopher Anderson and Catherine Croft. Anderson says then National Security Advisor John Bolton raised warning flags about President Trump's lawyer Rudy Giuliani acting as a Ukraine go-between. And Croft says former Republican Congressman Robert Livingston made multiple calls to try to get Ukraine Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch fired. In Southern California, a new large wildfires broken out with strong gusty Santa Ana winds continuing. It has forced the evacuation of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library as well as nearby homes in Simi Valley. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nathan Hager. This is Bloomberg.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's environment of market volatility, Pershing's Prime Services is well positioned to support the needs of hedge funds and other alternative investment managers. Whether it's customized financing or securities lending solutions, platform access, or business expansion, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and agile enough to meet your evolving demands. Pershing helps to solve the needs of clients by advocating for them, providing unwavering strength, deep supply, and award-winning service that is at the core of everything we do. Find out what sets Pershing's prime brokerage team apart.
Learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers offered by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Visit our website at Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
It's another Wednesday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and enjoy stunning white sand and crystal blue sea. Fly from London Gatwick to the Maldives with British Airways from £300 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
I tell you what used to be fair, lunch. Used to walk past pubs and just see people laughing and merriment. What happened to those cheery days? I tell you what happened to them. It's been replaced by a pint glass sitting by a computer full of condiments, plastic cutlery, and a pair of chopsticks you use for fishing the noodles out your keyboard. It's just not fair.
At TalkTalk, fairness is important. That's why, unlike some other providers, we offer fixed price plans on our fibre broadband for the entire length of your contract. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Fairer broadband for everyone.
Hi, it's Ali from Grange News. I'm getting everyone into the party mood with these indoor fireworks. Because how else do you celebrate tonight's triple rollover? Trust me, you don't want to miss it.
Lotto, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Now the 3-1. And Springer hits it in the air, deep to left field, and you can kiss it goodbye.
MLB fans, you can hear every call of the 2019 World Series on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball's hit well. Left field, high and deep. That's got a chance. Score!
The action concludes today with a winner-take-all Game 7. Will the Houston Astros or Washington Nationals be crowned as World Series champion? Listen live at 8 Eastern to find out. The 2019 World Series is on TuneIn Premium. NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
He does to the right, throws to the end zone, caught by Fells! 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Green Bay!
This Thursday on Halloween night, hear the home and away call as the San Francisco 49ers visit the Arizona Cardinals at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
Back, what a block! Touchdown for Tevin Coleman going the other way! Touchdown!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to discover what's happening in the app and around the world. Be the first to know about upcoming games and the hottest new music. Follow at TuneIn and always be in the know.
At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with Fox's full lineup of shows. Plus, when news breaks, Fox has you covered with live updates and expert analysis on the biggest developing stories. Listen to Fox News Talk anytime on TuneIn.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
It is the annual Florida-Georgia College Football Showdown. This year, there are more than just bragging rights on the line. With both teams ranked in the top 10, will it be the Gators or Bulldogs leaving Jacksonville on top of the SEC East and in the driver's seat for the conference championship? Find out this Saturday with kickoff starting at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Search college football to listen.
And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is the Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash. Stocks, a little change in the U.S. We had a mixed batch of earnings, and data shows the American economy avoided a pervasive slowdown. Treasury is rising right now. The dollar pretty much flat ahead of the Federal Reserve decision this afternoon. S&P 500 briefly fell to a session low. That came after Chile canceled next month's APEC meeting. That's where the U.S. and China intended to sign a partial trade pact. The Johnson & Johnson lifting the Dow Jones Industrial Average higher right now. Actually, it's just turned lower, the Dow overall. Down just 2 points, 27,069. The S&P 500 is down about a point at 3,035. And the NASDAQ Composite Index 2 points lower at 82.74. We have the 10-year Treasury yield right now at 1.80%. And Brent crude, the international benchmark for oil, down 14 cents at 61.45. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, data privacy and data integrity, one of the key issues facing technology, particularly social media, and it's really rising to higher level of consciousness, even with Washington, D.C. regulators and Congress people. Our next guest can really help us dig into this topic. Brittany Kaiser, she's co-founder of the Digital Asset Trade Association. She did work for Cambridge Analytica for 4 years before whistleblowing the company's unethical and illegal practices in terms of sharing data. She was actually the primary subject of Netflix's show, The Great Hack. Brittany, thanks so much for joining us here at Bloomberg Radio. Since the Cambridge Analytica thing kind of broke, that story broke as it relates to Facebook and sharing data, that's the first time I think a lot of people said, whoa, this is a big issue.
I agree with you.
What has changed since then, if anything?
So I think basic awareness of the amount of data that is collected from you on a day-to-day basis has been a little bit more pervasive in the public psyche. People are thinking a little bit more. People are reading terms and conditions. People are not accepting cookies when they go onto websites. And our legislators are finally taking this seriously, thank God. We have legislators... They are. We have legislators and regulators in U.S. Congress that have put together different packages of legislation, everyone from Senator Ed Markey to Senator Warner, and even on the state level, Governor Gavin Newsom, where they are demanding transparency from companies over what is collected on us. They are demanding to know how much money they're making off of our personal data. Something called the data dividend is a concept that means that we would get paid for the data, at least a percentage of it based off of what they are earning. And they're even going as far as to saying they are going to ban the negative use cases of our data, such as malicious algorithms that actually push up negative content in our newsfeed.
Can you give us a sense of the moment when you decided, when you were working for Cambridge Analytica, when you decided this is not okay and I need to do something?
Yes, that was actually a month after the 2016 election. For everybody that wasn't working on the Trump campaign and the Trump Super PAC, a month after November 2016, we were shown 2 days worth of case studies. Everything that was done, from the collection and purchasing of data, the research and polling that they did, to how they targeted people using their data. Now, that targeting wasn't as basic as it was when I worked on the Obama campaign, and it wasn't as positive as it was when I worked on the Obama campaign. They actually used people's data in order to incite fear. They used people's data in order to incite violence. They used people's data in order to even convince them that politics was not worth participating in.
Was there a moral calculus here on the part of the people who are driving that initiative?
Unfortunately, they let the data tell them what to do, which is that there's a large part of our population which is neurotic, And if you send them fear-based messaging, they might be less interested in going to the polls, or they might even switch their candidate preference.
So I know Facebook has been telling publicly to lawmakers, to regulators, to investors that they are working hard to make sure that this doesn't happen again in 2020. Based upon what you know, and based on we had Mr. Zuckerberg in front of Congress just, I think, a week ago outlining some of the plans, is Facebook doing enough to ensure this doesn't happen again? Can they even do anything?
So I think their main problem is that they're concentrating on foreign intervention in our elections, and they are not recognizing that some of our greatest threats to democracy are domestic. And their allowance of political speech to be deemed newsworthy and therefore not to be policed in the same way that basic users are with community standards is one of the biggest threats ahead of our next election. They are allowing politicians to lie, to spread disinformation and hate. And that is something that I can't even understand why Mark Zuckerberg would have made that decision. Even internally in Facebook, it's completely erupting amongst his staff.
Although people could say that's freedom of speech. And if everyone is neurotic and going to respond to fear, they're going to do it whether it's on Facebook or whether it's on a stump platform. So I'm wondering what's different about Facebook versus any platform.
I think what people are failing to recognize is that free speech is tempered. You are not allowed to incite racial hatred. You are not allowed to use sexism in order to discriminate against people. You are not allowed to engage in voter suppression tactics. Those are all laws that we already have. And so if you allow politicians to break those laws, but not normal people, that is something that is going to cause a lot of problems over the next year.
I guess what's the threshold for what's calling screaming fire in a burning theater, or not a burning theater?
Well, that's where I really think that there's tons of expertise that Mark Zuckerberg should be investing in. Everyone from the International Criminal Court to United Nations agencies have, from interns to data scientists, figuring out what is incitement of hatred, what is violent speech, how do you measure these things? And you know what? I think they have enough technical expertise and enough money that they could invest into solving these problems, and I don't actually see him taking the initiative.
A little bit different tack here. Kids and social media and technology, every parent is concerned about it, and I think most parents would admit we don't know what we don't know. We don't know. It's different than maybe managing drugs or alcohol or something like that. What do you think needs to be done there?
So I recently co-founded the Own Your Data Foundation specifically to train teachers and parents and even student leaders in how to understand what digital intelligence is. This is a new concept called DQ, like IQ or EQ. It's a digital intelligence quotient, which means that children should start from a very young age, before they're given their first device, in learning about what their data rights are, how to protect other people, what are basic cybersecurity protocols, how to understand and protect yourself from cyberbullying, how to be ethical online. These are all concepts that children these days are not introduced to before their parents give them their first device, or they're given their first device in schools. And I really think that needs to change in order to bring up a new generation that is more aware and is not as easily taken advantage of by companies like Facebook.
Are there any tech leaders, just quickly here, who are actually doing the right thing when it comes to adopting some of the programs that you're talking about?
Yes, actually, I think Microsoft is really leading the way right now and investing in a lot of social impact projects that have to do with digital intelligence, data literacy, awareness, and good use cases of data. Google is also making big investments into having working groups. I'm actually joining one that is really examining what are our real cybersecurity threats, not just the ones that Facebook decides to tell us they have.
Brittany Kaiser, thank you so much for spending this time. It's really fascinating. Brittany Kaiser, co-founder of Digital Asset Trade Association, also well known for being the whistleblower with the Cambridge Analytica case with respect to unveiling the way that people were using data in order to target specific areas for political motivation.
I feel better, a little bit better, talking to people like Brittany and to Tristan Harris before, that there were smart people out there, committed people out there to making sure that our digital, or try to improve, the quality of the digital environment.
As one of those neurotic parents that I'm sure are targeted, it makes me a little concerned of what damage I've already done. I must confess, but you can find out more about her. She's the primary subject of Netflix's The Great Hack documentary. We are here broadcasting live from the Sooner Than You Think conference in Brooklyn.
It's another Wednesday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to enjoy a warm Bayesian welcome.
How are you doing? Enjoying the sunshine?
Fly from London Gatwick to Barbados with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £699 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Oh no. 1 kebab, 4 cabs, 3 karaoke booths.
But really?
You can't always recall what you spent on a night out. But you could map the location of those transactions on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. Not available for every transaction. T's and C's apply.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
Toss to the right, throws to the end zone, caught by Fells!
15, 10, 5, touchdown, Green Bay!
This Thursday on Halloween night, hear the home and away call as the San Francisco 49ers visit the Arizona Cardinals at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
Back, what a block! Touchdown for Tevin Coleman going the other way! Touchdown!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Now the 3-1. And Springer hits it in the air, deep to left field, and you can kiss it goodbye.
MLB fans, you can hear every call of the 2019 World Series on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball's hit well. Left field, high and deep. That's got a chance. Score!
The action concludes today with a winner-take-all Game 7. Will the Houston Astros or Washington Nationals be crowned as World Series champion? Listen live at 8 Eastern to find out. The 2019 World Series is on TuneIn Premium.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The war of the crown. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut
the
it.
sideline, the man fleet for 3.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now. Hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on
Search
the right.
NBA today to start listening.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Are we on the brink of a more serious downturn?
I've always thought of the municipal bond market as a little bit of a safe haven.
Banks are going to have to start paying their depositors more.
Are we still in that mode where we're buying the dips?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
Cash, if you're looking at treasury bills, provides a higher return than stocks and bonds here in the U.S.
If your consumer is a woman, you're more likely to be a growth company.
Longer-term interest rates can go down, even with short-term interest rates still going up a little bit.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning. We are broadcasting from the Sooner Than You Think network. Coming up, we're going to speak to the Chief Information Security Officer for Equifax, talk about data security. Plus, we'll take a look at healthcare stocks. They're actually putting up some good numbers, and the stocks are reacting. But right now, let's go to John Tucker, Bloomberg News, for a Bloomberg Business Flash. John.
All right, thanks a lot, Paul and Lisa. Right now, the major averages kind of not going anywhere, just a little lower at this point. Not a lot of movement in U.S. stocks as investors wait for a rate decision from the Federal Reserve. Pretty much baked into the cake is another rate cut. That will be the third time this year. Did get some economic data today. Economic growth in the U.S. slipping below 2% in the third quarter, but there's a silver lining. Let's get more from Vinny Del Giudice.
It had been worse. Household spending propped up the economy as business investment stumbled. GDP expanded at a 1.9% pace between July and September, slower than the second quarter, but better than Wall Street forecasts. Weaker exports and inventory growth also restrained third quarter GDP. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
Johnson & Johnson shares, they're up about to 2%, the biggest gainer in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The J&J says its tests confirmed there is no asbestos in its baby powder. Molson Coors, that's slumping after reporting its results, and General Electric jumping after raising its forecast. And right now, the S&P 500 down a point, 3,035. The Dow Jones Industrial Average just 4 points lower, 27,066. And the Nasdaq Composite Index up a point at 82.78. 10-year yield in the U.S. up to 1.80%. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
John Tucker, thank you so much. Let's kind of take a look at small and mid-cap shares, which do have a direction today. We have our own Dave Wilson, Bloomberg stocks editor, joining from our Interactive Broker studios. So what are we seeing there?
Definitely a direction, and it's down, Lisa. The Russell 2000 index lower by about 0.7%, while the S&P 500 is off by less than 0.1%. The Russell's steepest drop belongs to Cyclerion Therapeutics, whose ticker is CYCN. The drug developer has plummeted 77.5% after a proposed treatment for heart failure didn't meet the main goal of the study. Quad Graphics, ticker QUAD, has fallen almost 52%. The commercial printer's third quarter earnings and sales were far below analyst average estimates in a Bloomberg survey. Quad Graphics cut full-year forecast and halved its dividend. Tupperware Brands, ticker TUP, has declined more than 31.5%. The housewares maker's third quarter profit and revenue fell more than analysts expected. Now, the Russell's biggest advance belongs to OneSpan, ticker OSPN. The cybersecurity company has risen about 20.5%. Third quarter earnings were more than double the average estimate, and revenue was far ahead of projections. And Mutual First Financial, ticker MFSF, has climbed more than 19.5%. The Indiana-based bank holding company accepted a takeover offer from Northwest Bank shares. The all-stock deal initially valued at $346 million.
Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson, thank you so much. Well, we're about halfway through this earnings season, and one of the sectors that has performed the best is the healthcare sector, putting up some pretty good results here. The stocks are definitely taking notice. To get the latest, we welcome Tatiana Darie. She covers Bloomberg. She covers healthcare for Bloomberg News. So, Tatiana, thanks so much for joining us. Give us a breakdown of kind of what we've seen from these healthcare companies so far this earnings season.
Yes, so we're seeing here that political concerns have taken backseat to earnings growth. Healthcare stocks have posted big earnings growth. They have surprised expectations. If you look among all sectors in the S&P 500, they posted the biggest surprise and the biggest gain in their share prices since the bank started reporting 2 weeks ago. So during this earnings season, they've been the outperformer.
What are we talking about? Insurance companies, biopharmaceutical companies, which in particular?
Lisa, it's broad-based. It started with health insurers, which have been so beaten down on political concerns and on Medicare for all fears. They've rallied 15%. I'm talking about the S&P 500 Managed Care Index. If you look at that, it's up 15% since United Health reported earnings 2 weeks ago. And then we go to Pfizer and pharmaceuticals. Pfizer had a strong quarter and raised its full-year forecast just yesterday, rallied about 3%, and also hospitals. The hospital chain, HCA Healthcare, posted its biggest gain in 15 months after its numbers yesterday, too.
So, Tatiana, I know you've listened to a lot of conference calls this quarter. What are the companies saying about the outlook going forward, both in terms of, I guess, their operational outlook, but probably more importantly, the political/regulatory outlook?
That's one issue they've tried to stay away from, and I think they've learned that from United Health last year, or not last year, earlier this year in April. This is what sparked that big sell-off there when United Health sort of got into that debate about the Democratic plans. So they're staying away from from that. But, they're acknowledging that there is a little bit of uncertainty there, but they're just sticking to the plan and to their business and looking, longer term.
I just have to wonder, as healthcare companies in particular post really high profit margins, and as healthcare costs surge, at what point their good results become a liability? I mean, Tatiana, is there any talk about that, or am I just out of left field here?
It could become during the debates, right? This is where we'd hear politicians talking about that. But like for investors, this is really important to see them post really solid results and be sort of like that beacon of safety in a market where there aren't any more, many areas that have opportunities.
So Tatiana, when you talk to analysts out there and investors, are people kind of saying, listen, we think the political risk is maybe kind of baked in here and it's time to really focus on the fundamentals? Or do you sense that people are still saying, boy, I just can't call this political aspect here, so I'm going to stick on the sidelines?
I think that's contributed a lot to the rally we're seeing. We've seen analysts come out before earnings and saying, hey, political concerns are baked in already. We're too early to respond to an election that's, still a year away. So let's focus on the fundamentals. This is the growth that they're expected to post. And actually, companies have surprised those expectations. And according to our strategist, Martin Adams, she says that EPS growth is coming double what was expected before earnings. So they're certainly exceeding those expectations. But to your point, if we look at the discount to the S&P 500, healthcare is still trading at a 13% discount. So those political concerns still remain.
Tatiana Darrier, thank you so much for being with us. Tatiana is a healthcare reporter for us at Bloomberg News. Really interesting. We are broadcasting from the Sooner Than You Think conference in Brooklyn. Amid all of this, we should just reiterate the news about Chile canceling their APEC summit, and that this really calls into question, as you so rightly pointed out, Paul, earlier, the Trump-Xi meeting on trade. And this really, what's interesting to me about that is that it's not necessarily having a material effect on equities, which is perhaps indicative of how people are growing tired of the is it on or is it off story of trade negotiations.
Yeah, I think the consensus from what we hear is that both sides are moving towards some type of phase one or light type of agreement, and that's probably good enough for this equity markets. And then we have, of course, the Fed, and later today, Lisa, when we hear from Chairman Powell and what is widely expected to be a 25 basis point rate cut. So you have, a accommodative Fed, a sense that trade is kind of moving on the right track, and then we may even have an election in the UK in December 12th, and that might create a little bit more clarity. So some of the things that really spooked the market fourth quarter last year maybe kind of coming together a little bit here.
Yeah, although this is definitely going to be interesting. Just to give you more color on that cancellation, it's on the heels of the social unrest that is continuing to rock Santiago, the capital of the nation, as people protest against some of the social policies and economic policies. Right now, let's head to Washington, D.C., our 99.1 studios there. Nathan Hager with World and National Headlines. Nathan.
Yeah, continuing to watch the closed-door House impeachment investigation, Lisa. Lawmakers are hearing from two State Department Ukraine specialists today. In her opening statement, Catherine Croft said she received multiple calls from former Republican Congressman turned lobbyist Robert Livingston looking to get then Ukraine Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch fired. She says Livingston called her an Obama holdover. And Christopher Anderson says then National Security Advisor John Bolton saw President Trump's lawyer Rudy Giuliani as an obstacle to getting the White House more invested in helping Ukraine's new president. House Oversight top Republican Jim Jordan says he still wants to know who the whistleblower is.
Always look for two things when a whistleblower comes forward. Did they have firsthand knowledge, and what is their bias and or motive? This individual, whomever he may be, has problems in both areas.
Now, tomorrow, the House votes on ground rules for the public impeachment inquiry. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says it denies due process to the president. Day 2 of hearings into the Boeing 737 MAX. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman on Capitol Hill.
DeFazio began with a searing indictment of Boeing's decision-making, including leaving it to the skills of pilots to react to a malfunction of the new computerized control system.
We now know that Boeing and the FAA assumed pilots would appropriately react in 4 seconds.
But Boeing had information that some pilots might react in 10 seconds or longer, and if that happened, the results would be catastrophic and result in the loss of the aircraft, as happened twice.
Fazio said competitive market forces and Wall Street propel even the best companies to make the worst decisions. On Capitol Hill, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
Global news on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
To see something far away, you can either get a powerful telescope or you can go there.
Talk about export numbers because they've been quite shocking. Korea, we saw Singapore, Japan too.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
How should investors be positioning?
When you take a look at the consumers in China, it remains challenging.
We go there.
To what extent is access to cheap credit part of the equation?
Tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
To buy your home, you became a house hunting ace, learned about loans, scoured neighborhoods, and asked the right questions. Now you're queen of your castle. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll feel empowered to own your retirement like you own your home. Go to aceyourretirement.org. Because when it comes to clearing financial hurdles, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Bloomberg is excited to convene the Year Ahead Summit on November 7th in New York City. Speakers include Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg, award-winning actor, producer, and businesswoman Sarah Jessica Parker, TPG co-CEO Jim Coulter, and CVS Health CEO Larry Merlo. Supporting sponsors, Pfizer, Workday, Hennessy Paradise Imperial. Participating sponsor, Invesco QQQ. Learn more at BloombergLive.com/TYA. Register with code RADIO.
Hi, everyone. Al Roker here. As a guy with his own catchphrase, I appreciate that after 75 years, Smokey's only said,
"Only you can prevent wildfires."
But I'm filling in because there's a lot more to report. Like when it's dry or windy. Be careful burning yard waste, because wildfires can even start in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Next, we donned our skates for Bath on Ice. I'm a natural. Didn't have to hold on to anything. Or anyone. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
It's another Wednesday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and relax with 365 beautiful beaches.
So yes, sir, what would you like to have?
Fly from London Gatwick to Antigua with British Airways from £223 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March. Why is Lizzie going rental for Fizzy Haze? Is it because her flat is so beautiful and spacious? Snazzy! Or has roof terrace, garden and party room? Surprising! Or because it's 18 minutes to Paddington? Easy! With friendly staff on hand to take any deliveries? Amazing! Or just because her fuzzy friend can live there too? Find your new home at fizzyhaze.com. Fizzy Living. Reinventing renting.
They don't chant your name when you give blood, or sing songs about you. But patients and their families will remember you forever. Because your blood can change their lives. We need more blood donors in Tooting, the West End and Edgware. Bleed for London. Join us today at blood.co.uk.
Watford. On chilly days like today, forgetting to turn the heating off is easily done, especially when you're out enjoying some lunch. But it's nice to know with Hive Active Heating, a Which Best Buy, you can turn your heating off from wherever you are. And by never having to heat an empty home, you could save up to £120 a year on your heating bill.
which sounds like the perfect excuse to order another course. Search Hive Heating to buy now. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want reality TV, I can fill that island-shaped hole. Documentaries, I got ones about space, sharks, or superstars. Or how about football? I've got the Premier League. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus, month passes auto-renew, terms apply.
Oh no. 1 kebab, 4 cabs, 3 karaoke booths.
But really?
You can't always recall what you spent on a night out. But you could map the location of those transactions on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. Not available for every transaction. T's and C's apply.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker, the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash. U.S. stock index is little change today. Investors digesting a fresh batch of earnings reports ahead of the widely expected interest rate cut by the Federal Reserve. That'll take place about 2 o'clock Wall Street time. Central Bank has already lowered borrowing costs twice this year. Odds of a rate cut have ballooned to over 97%. Nearly half the S&P 500 companies have posted trading results after have beaten profit estimates. Still, analysts expecting a almost 2% drop in third quarter earnings. General Electric is gaining after the industrial conglomerate beat quarterly profit estimates, also raised its cash forecast for the year. Right now, the S&P 500 2 points lower at 3,034. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 6 points. We're at 27,064. And the Nasdaq Composite Index 6 points lower at 8270. 10-year yield in the U.S., 1.80%. And we check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, we are broadcasting from the Bloomberg Sooner Than You Think conference in Brooklyn, New York. We're talking all things technology. One of the big topics is information security. Our next guest is right there on the front lines. Jamil Farshi, Equifax Chief Information Security Officer, formerly the CISO, which is the Chief Information Security Officer at the Home Depot and Time Warner. He joined Equifax in 2018 after that big breach that the company experienced in 2017. Jamil, thanks so much for joining us. Give us a sense, just broadly speaking, is data security better now than it was 2 years ago?
I don't know that it's materially better on a relative basis. I think our technologies have improved. I think our processes have improved. Cultures generally have improved to a degree, but the adversaries are continuing to improve their game as well. It's an arms race, and so on a relative basis, I think we're roughly where we were in the past.
Well, just set the record straight. So, Chief Information Security Officer is pronounced CISO. The acronym.
With that.
It's not CISO or anything else that you say. We have heard it from here.
Right.
Jamil, what made you want to be a CISO?
You know, when I first got into security, it was because the environment is dynamic. It changes every single day. And, I could be, no offense to an accountant, but you're...
But offense. Clearly it's an offense. I mean, you're just setting it up to be fail. Go on.
I mean, but you do the same thing day in and day out, and you have a little script, whatever.
Burn.
Security, though, technology changes, organizations change, the threat actors change, the landscape changes, and so there's always a new challenge for you to tackle, and I think it's just an outstanding experience to be able to be in this field.
Well, that's a new term, and I like it, threat actors. Who are the threat actors today that most concern you?
Well, I basically categorize them into 3 buckets. You've got the hacktivists, which is your basement folks or people that are ideologically trying to attack you. You've got organized crime. Their motive is purely financial. And then you have the nation states. And their motives vary, but largely it's about intelligence and security of their nation. The ones I care about most, because they're the most sophisticated, are without a doubt the nation states.
How sophisticated is the programming with respect to catching some of the potential hacks that are coming in?
So our program is predicated on the basis of ensuring we have multiple layers of defense so that we can prevent as many as we can, but then detect and respond to the best degree possible. Our job, and there's a huge challenge in security as it relates to attribution, figuring out who the actual attackers are. We leave that in the hands of law enforcement to be able to execute on that front.
How much of the attacks do we actually catch, do you think? And how much just go through undetected?
Depends on how you define catch.
Okay.
We stop a tremendous number. So, for example, at Equifax, we successfully defend roughly 3 to 4 million attacks per day. So in terms of the universe of attacks, we stop the vast majority of them. What's worrisome, though, is that if you have one control that fails, it just takes that one attack to potentially cause a meaningful amount of harm.
Do you try to spread out the data on different systems so that if someone hacks in, they don't have access to the whole piggy bank?
So that is a security concept for sure. Great, right? Like that.
I try.
But you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket.
Thank
for
you.
Sure.
That's another one.
What we try to do is enclave, put segmentation in. So we basically put barriers between different data sets. So it just adds an additional hurdle for the attacker of difficulty, and it also takes them more time, which gives us a better opportunity to be able to detect that they're within the environment. Doing that helps it.
Right. Is a potential solution spending more money?
Yes, of course it is. Is he going to say no?
Yes.
I mean, come on.
I mean, I guess my concern is the answer to your first question, which is on a relative basis, we're probably not as a society any safer than we were because the bad actors continue to invest. Is there a solution to this issue longer term, or is it let's just do the best we can, and consumers, it's maybe just the level of risk you have to live with?
There is a certain level of risk that we have to live with in today's day and age. I mean, attacks, I read a study the other day, there were 3,800 attacks just in the first half of this year, a 54% increase year over year. So the problem is persistent, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better for sure. As an organization, you put in a few key focus areas. So make sure you're focusing on the culture of the organization. Have the right level of incentives built in and investments to be able to bolster your program. Focus on the fundamental controls. If you do the basics really, really well, you're going to stop 99.9% of those attacks that are out there. And then it's about trade-offs. So focus on risk management. You can't do everything all at once, and the landscape changes too quickly to be able to solve for it all. So you need to make thoughtful decisions about what risks am I willing to accept and which ones am I not.
So just quickly here, you said you count on law enforcement to go after some of these bad actors. How much confidence do you have in their cyber capabilities right now?
Oh, they're outstanding. They're second to none, quite frankly. The problem, though, is being able to determine attribution. It's really, really hard, no matter how sophisticated you are, to be able to identify who the attacker actually is. Because when you execute an attack, if you're good, you don't go straight from China, for example, right to Equifax. You hop through a multitude of different systems using different techniques, and so it's very difficult to be able to follow those breadcrumbs back to the origin.
Jamil Farshi, thank you so much for spending time with us.
It's been great. Thank you, guys.
Jamil Farshi is Equifax's Chief Information Security Officer. Just to be very clear, that is CISO, not CISO or CISO or anything else, CISO. Formerly the CISO of the Home Depot and Time Warner. He joined Equifax in February 2018 after the big breach. We are broadcasting live from the Sooner Than You Think conference in Brooklyn, hosted by Bloomberg. A fascinating conference, taking a look at some of the ethical, moral, and practical issues with technology. This is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks in a holding pattern as we await word from the Federal Reserve. The central bank is expected to cut rates by a 0.25 percentage point. The Fed issues its latest policy decision 2 p.m. Wall Street time. Volkswagen is lowering its outlook for vehicle deliveries this year. While VW earnings beat estimates, the world's biggest car maker expects a faster than expected decline in auto markets around the world. Mattel on the rise as a toy maker reported better than expected third quarter sales. Strength in Hot Wheels and Barbie drove the sales beat. succeed. Simultaneously, the company said it resolved a whistleblower allegation about its accounting practices. And Johnson & Johnson says lab tests found no signs of asbestos in recalled baby powder. This puts the health giant at odds with U.S. regulators. They're sticking by results that detected a trace amount of the carcinogen. J&J is facing nearly 17,000 lawsuits claiming asbestos in its baby powder products gave people cancer. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
It's another Wednesday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and explore tropical rainforests. Fly from London Gatwick to Costa Rica with British Airways from £218 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hey, we know that Nature Valley nut butter cups are delicious anywhere. But why just sit in the kitchen eating them? When you could be here, chilling outside in the fresh air with a tasty treat. Oh, good lord! Whole grain oats with a delicious real nut butter filling. Nature Valley nut butter cups. Get out more.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want football, how about the Premier League? Documentaries, I got ones about space, sharks, or superstars. Or how about thrillers? They're going to be on the edge of their seats with these. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus, month passes auto-renew, terms apply.
The B&Q 3 for 2 offer is now on, including an unmissable 3 for 2 on tiles and flooring, like real wood and laminate. So hurry to B&Q. You can do it when you're 3 for 2 it. Excludes cut-to-measure flooring, flooring accessories and underlay. Every third item per single transaction in descending price order free. Offer ends November 3rd. See DIY.com.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
Now the 3-1. And Springer hits it in the air, deep to left field, and you can kiss it goodbye.
MLB fans, you can hear every call of the 2019 World Series on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball's hit well. Left field, high and deep, that's got a chance, score!
The action concludes today with a winner-take-all Game 7. Will the Houston Astros or Washington Nationals be crowned as World Series champion? Listen live at 8 Eastern to find out. The 2019 World Series is on TuneIn Premium.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to discover what's happening in the app and around the world. Be the first to know about upcoming games and the hottest new music. Follow at TuneIn and always be in the know.
In the stock market and in life,
Everything can change from 1 minute to the next. Be the first to hear the latest money news and market trends with CNBC on TuneIn. Wherever your day takes you, listen to CNBC's full slate of programming, including shows like Fast Money, Squawk Box, and Mad Money with Jim Cramer. And when the next big business story breaks, CNBC lets you know with live updates and commentary. At the office, at home, or on the go. Search CNBC on TuneIn to listen.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
We are broadcasting from the Sooner Than You Think conference in Brooklyn. Coming up, we're going to speak to Dave Yost, the Attorney General for the state of Ohio. Ohio is one of the states that is probing Facebook. Plus, we'll also get a preview of Apple earnings due after the close. But first, let's get a Bloomberg Business Flash from John Tucker. John.
And Paul, the major averages, they are low right now. Stocks, in fact, extended some earlier losses as the trade meeting between President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping is put into doubt after Chile canceled the APEC summit where they plan to get together. Mixed batch of earnings and data showing the economy in the U.S. avoided a pervasive slowdown. Also digesting that. Now, Treasury's rising. The dollar pretty much flat ahead of the Federal Reserve's rate decision. The central bank widely believed to cut rates for a third time. They'll do that this afternoon. Payroll provider ADP out with its monthly employment tally. The data point to a fairly steady labor market. More from Vinny Del Giudice.
American businesses added 125,000 workers in October, topping the prior month's gain. Services led the way. Mining, construction, and manufacturing posted losses while small business hiring moderated. Today's ADP report is a prelude for official government numbers Friday. The GM strike could affect that data. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
We have the S&P 500 right now, 3 points lower at 3,033. The Dow, 16 points lower at 27,054. The Nasdaq Composite Index down 11 points at 82.65. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
So as we broadcast from the Sooner Than You Think conference, Paul, we're learning about all the ways we're destroying our children by allowing them to use Facebook and things like that. We are so lucky to be joined by someone who's trying to do something about it. Dave Yost, he is the Ohio Attorney General who has made a lot of headlines with respect to, in particular, antitrust cases against Facebook and Google, as well as a whole host of other issues with respect to opioid addiction and everything else. We are so glad to have you, Attorney General. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So what kind of response have you gotten from Facebook and Google after unveiling this antitrust case, I believe, last month?
So they have been professional and have pledged cooperation.
Haven't egged your office?
I have actually had a few people from Facebook visit me at the office.
So give us a sense of how the states or how Ohio is going to approach this relative to, say, some of the federal investigations. How are you approaching this?
So the FTC is involved with Facebook and kind of leading the federal side of Facebook investigation with an assist apparently from DOJ. And then DOJ is leading the federal portion of the Google work. So we, like other states, attorneys general, will be working in concert with each other and with the federal government.
What would you like to see with these companies? How would you like to see them broken up?
Well, I'm not sure I want to see it broken up. I'm not sure that's the right answer. I'm not sure that we have really thought through what the problems are we're talking about here. We've heard them described at this conference. We've got people talking about, the threat to democracy through the flow of information. We've got traditional antitrust concerns about competitiveness in the marketplace. We've got, the Professor Wu wing of the crowd that, talks about the curse of bigness. And some of those may be cognizable, and it might be something we do in court, and some of these things may be legislative. I'm not sure they're all the same problem, but overall, I would describe it as the aggregation of power in the hands of a few.
So, but what are you trying to accomplish then with the antitrust suit?
Well, there are some questions within the economic and business models of both of these tech giants that implicate competitiveness. I don't like the term antitrust because it's really, we haven't had trusts in this country for over a century. Nobody's ever seen a trust. But what it really is competitiveness regulation to make sure that people attain a certain scale, a certain position of dominance in the market, don't use that to stifle competition. And that's within the antitrust issue and the legal issues, that's the focus.
So historically, the United States has taken a very light regulatory touch to technology, and any regulatory oversight that they've had to deal with has generally come from the European Union, quite frankly, going back to the Microsoft days in terms of antitrust and other issues. But it appears that has changed. I mean, do you have a sense that there is a real commitment, a bipartisan commitment, both at the federal level and at the state level, that we really need to take a look at what's going on with these big tech companies?
I think in terms of taking a look, yeah, I would call that a bipartisan commitment. In terms of what comes out the other side, I'm not sure where that comes. And also, I would quibble a little bit with your characterization of the light touch. Not that it's not true, but that I think that light touch was driven by a desire to see the internet and related technologies innovate and expand. And we've seen that over the last 30, 25 years. But I don't think we have to worry about strangling the innovation in the cradle anymore. This has gotten to be very big, very massive, economically resourced. And so now maybe it's time that we've turned a corner and are re-examining some of these questions.
So just real quickly here, I want to shift gears to the opioid issues, sure, because that's been really in the news recently. What do you think of some of the settlements that the pharmaceutical companies have paid out? Do you think that will be enough eventually to compensate?
Well, look, there's not enough money to be enough. If you liquidated the industry, which I do not want to see happen, I don't want to rely on our European Union for our pharmaceuticals. But even if you liquidated the industry, there's not enough money to cover past damages and 20 years of abatement going out to try to get in front of this thing. So we got to start from there. What's realistic? But the numbers that are on the table right now, I'm not sure that I'm ready to go there. I'm really not ready to go there until we have some guardrails to make sure that this money doesn't go up in smoke like the tobacco settlement did in so many places, where money that we thought was going to go to treatment and cessation programs for tobacco ended up just filling budget holes in state and local governments.
David Yost, thank you so much for being with us, Attorney General of Ohio, who's made some pretty massive ripples, frankly, from the pharmaceutical industries with the opioid lawsuits, as well as, of course, with the antitrust lawsuit that we were talking about. But really interesting and important that the Attorney General was raising the issue of, we don't know what the problem is at this point. Yep. What is the ultimate solution, which we're looking into throughout the day? Right now, let's head over to Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager with World and National Headlines. Nathan.
Lisa, President Trump's plan to ink a first-phase trade accord with China next month has been thrown into doubt now. That's because Chile has canceled the APEC summit where President Trump planned to meet with China's Xi Jinping. This is some of the worst social unrest in years continues to rock Santiago. The cancellation appears to have caught the White House off guard. Spokesman Hogan Gidley says they're trying to get to the bottom of it. President Trump's nominee to serve as ambassador to Russia says the U.S. must address the company's litany of malign actions while engaging with Moscow where it serves America's interests. Deputy Secretary of State John Sullivan is facing Senate confirmation hearings as three House committees continue closed-door impeachment hearings centered on President Trump's dealings with Ukraine. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has written to Army officials asking what protections will be given to Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman. Critics questioned the National Security Council aide's patriotism after he testified behind closed doors yesterday. With the threat of U.S. sanctions back on the table, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is rethinking his travel plans.
Erdogan was scheduled to travel to Washington on November 13th. Now he's non-committal after House lawmakers overwhelmingly passed legislation to penalize Turkey for its military offensive in Syria and a bill that condemns the Ottoman Turks for an Armenian genocide more than a century ago. Still, there are reasons for Erdogan to keep the date, including ironing out differences over Turkey's purchase of a Russian missile defense system, which got Turkey suspended from the F-35 fighter jet program. In Washington, I'm Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
Global news on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Startups and research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology are fueling the innovation economy. And few people are better positioned to see what's on the horizon in New Jersey than physicist and state representative Andrew Zwicker.
How technology is transforming our financial sector is revolutionary, and so much of that is in New Jersey. We are innovators when it comes to agriculture, and there is opportunity now for great transformation in how are we going to grow food in an ever-growing population, and how do we turn urban centers into agricultural centers. Autonomous vehicles is another one where we have some of the world's leading experts, and how this will transform how those who are either elderly or are visually impaired or mobilely impaired can start to use autonomous vehicles to transform their lives and have access to transportation they could have never had before.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu/research.
It's another Wednesday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick, and relax with 365 beautiful beaches.
So yes, sir, what would you like to have?
Fly from London Gatwick to Antigua with British Airways from £223 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want crime dramas, I've got loads, and they're never going to guess who did it. Movies, I've got blockbusters. Or how about comedy? Coming up, way better than the dad jokes in this house. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus, month passes auto renew, terms apply.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
Now the 3-1. And Springer hits it in the air, deep to left field, and you can kiss it goodbye.
MLB fans, you can hear every call of the 2019 World Series on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball's hit well. Left field, high and deep. That's got a chance. Score!
The action concludes today with a winner-take-all Game 7. Will the Houston Astros or Washington Nationals be crowned as World Series champion? Listen live at 8 Eastern to find out. The 2019 World Series is on TuneIn Premium.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to discover what's happening in the app and around the world. Be the first to know about upcoming games and the hottest new music. Follow at TuneIn and always be in the know.
For some, Halloween is a little more serious than candy and costumes. To give your Hallows Eve a truly frightening feeling, turn on Soma FM's special Doom Station to hear a haunting seance of soundscapes made for tortured souls, the living dead, and cursed spirits of the night. Search Doom Special on TuneIn to run a chill down your spine this Halloween.
At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with Fox's full lineup of shows. Plus, when news breaks, Fox has you covered with live updates and expert analysis on the biggest developing stories. Listen to Fox News Talk anytime on TuneIn.
Next time you look up at the stars, think about this.
Inside you are the remains of a stellar explosion. You are made of stardust. And without the stars, there wouldn't be us.
I'm Guy Raz, the wonders of the universe and the people who still look up every night. Next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR. You can subscribe to the TED Radio Hour on TuneIn.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. Somebody stays on his feet.
It is the annual Florida-Georgia College Football Showdown. This year, there are more than just bragging rights on the line. With both teams ranked in the top 10, will it be the Gators or Bulldogs leaving Jacksonville on top of the SEC East and in the driver's seat for the conference championship? Find out this Saturday with kickoff starting at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Search college football to listen.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom. It is Bloomberg Business Flash. The major averages have fallen to session lows. This comes after Chile canceled next month's APEC meeting. That's where the U.S. and China were supposed to sign a partial trade pact. Johnson & Johnson, the biggest gainer in the Dow Jones Industrial Average after it said its test showed no asbestos in any of its products. Yum Brands, C.H. Robinson, Molson Coors, they're all lower after reporting their quarterly results. And General Electric, that is higher. They've raised their forecast. Mattel is soaring after it had a sales beat. Now, after the close of regular trading in New York today, we get results from Facebook as well as Apple. S&P 500 right now, 5 points lower. That's down 0.2%. We're at 3,031. Dow Jones Industrial Average, 31 points lower. That's down 0.1%. We're at 27,041. And the Nasdaq Composite Index is down 18 points. That's down 0.2% at 82.58. And we check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
We are here at the Sooner Than You Think conference here in Brooklyn. This is a Bloomberg conference taking a look at technology, and that's good because we have some tech numbers coming out after the close. Most notably, we have Apple and Facebook. To get a preview of what we can hear from our good friends at Apple, we welcome Gene Munster, founder of Loop Capital. Gene, thanks so much for joining us here. The stock, Apple stock, has had some really strong run here, up over 50% this year. What's driving this stock here?
I think there's a better sense that this isn't about a hit-driven, what's the iPhone number in a quarter. It's more about a bigger theme that the company is building a suite of products that are able to generate kind of mid-single-digit revenue growth, and investors are kind of re-rating the multiple based on that. I think that's really going to be what's representative of the results tonight. It's going to be nothing that's off the charts. We're talking about low single-digit revenue growth, but that stability in the face of what has been concerns about China and a concern about a lackluster product cycle, the stability of revenue, despite those concerns, is what is driving the shares higher over the last few months.
Does it bother you, Gene, that they do not anymore release numbers of iPhones sold so you can get that kind of granular data?
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, as someone who closely follows the story, that's more data is always better. But ultimately, if you take the approach of trying to understand how the company should be valued longer term, I think it does make sense to no longer disclose those units. For example, Amazon doesn't disclose how many swing sets that they sell. I think that they just really ultimately look at top-line revenue growth, and I think that's what Apple's trying to do, is change the narrative away from what is an iPhone unit number and more towards a suite of products. I just want to quickly emphasize like that suite of products approach. The iPhone is going to be probably flattish to down slightly in the September quarter, but wearables, which is 8% of revenue, is probably going to be up greater than 30%. So it's most important that people look at the net of these, which is overall revenues growing.
So, Gene, you've been so good at explaining to our Bloomberg Radio audience this Apple story as it relates to, kind of this pivot away from sole, kind of a unit story, a phone story, one more towards services and services revenue. Give us a sense of kind of how you think the company's doing in this big pivot to becoming more of a services company.
So services are just under 20% of revenue. They'll likely grow at 16% this quarter. That's a little bit faster growth than we saw in the September quarter, where it was 13%. But it's still a relatively small part of their overall revenue. When you add on Apple TV Plus, when you add on other apps that are coming, the continued growth of the App Store, that continues to improve that business. What I think is most important around this whole services theme is to expand the view beyond the services segment, that call it just under 20% piece that we're talking about, and to think about essentially all of their revenues, including the iPhone, effectively as a service. The cost of being a human is to have a mobile phone and to upgrade that every 2 or 3 years. And that is going to be where ultimately what's going to drive this story, I think, much higher. This should be, in the next year or two, a $350 stock as investors start thinking about the hardware as a services type of visibility.
So just to give some perspective, currently the shares are at $241.94, $350 target within the next year. Pretty lofty. What would you have to see in order to get there? Or maybe on the converse side, what would you have to see to reduce your target?
So I talked to the buy side, and this view that the multiple could be measurably higher on Apple is a minority view. I want to start there. And what we need to see is for investors to slowly start to view Apple as a consumer staple company and get a multiple similar to companies like Procter & Gamble and Coca-Cola, which would be kind of a mid-tier, mid-20s multiple. And so not a lot needs to happen with the business. Just growing at 5% would be better growth than Coca-Cola, which has been in decline. But this view that ultimately, whether it's wearables or hearables with AirPods, the phone, the computer, that we now, there needs to be a category of a consumer tech staples company, and Apple is that company. And what we need to see is that movement, in which I think it's time that movement starts to go forward, to take hold, and what I feel is investors just fairly value Apple's multiple in that mid-20 range. So,
Gene, as this company continues to evolve into more of a consumer company, I'm looking at the balance sheet. I see call it $10, $20 billion of net cash. I see $60 billion of free cash flow every year, and I see a dividend yield of about 1.3, 1.4%. Should they be paying out more in dividends going forward?
Yes, they will. Yes, they should, and they will too. Unfortunately, we got to wait till they report their March quarter, so it's not for another 6 months that we're going to get an update on that. But that will likely continue to increase. The company's been very clear that they want to be what's called net cash neutral, which is essentially take another, call it $100 million off their balance sheet and give that back to investors. They did not give the time frame, but the quick math is this: if they return that, call it $100 billion essentially to investors, that in itself can move shares several percent higher just based on that, call it 5% higher just based on that piece that's not reflected in current investor thinking.
Gene Munster, thank you so much for joining us. Gene Munster, co-founder of Loop Ventures, talking about Apple reporting after the bell today. Pretty high expectations, despite the fact that revenue from the iPhone is expected to go down. High expectations for some of the other areas. And frankly, we have also gotten some news about perhaps higher than expected iPhone orders. So that was about a month ago, and you've seen the shares pop since there. I got to say, Paul, this Sooner Than You Think conference is so thought-provoking and fantastic, and I generally feel frightened as a parent
Exactly.
for all of the exposure that I am unleashing onto my children.
Yeah, it's interesting. The technology, it's become all part of our central part of our lives, and there's a whole host of regulatory, social issues, business issues that all have to be managed by all players in the space. And we're talking to some of the leading players here today at the Bloomberg Sooner Than You Think conference. Really getting some very smart conversation. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, I will say that I'm thinking of Shira Ovide, the Bloomberg opinion columnist. I know what she would say. Basically, we're screwed. Like, basically, that's the takeaway. Not so much when you look at some of the ambition here to make things better, to analyze what potentially could be a problem and how to move forward. We are going to move forward with a whole host of additional guests from this conference in the next 2 hours in a special Bloomberg Markets from the Sooner Than You Think conference in Brooklyn. This is Bloomberg Radio.
In addition to Bloomberg Radio, you can catch the latest news and biggest newsmakers on Bloomberg Television. Look for us on DirecTV Channel 353 or check your local listings.
It's another Wednesday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and enjoy stunning white sand and crystal blue sea. Fly from London Gatwick to the Maldives with British Airways from £300 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want crime dramas, I've got loads, and they're never going to guess who did it. Reality TV, I can fill that island-shaped hole. Or how about thrillers? They're going to be on the edge of their seats with these. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus, month passes auto-renew, terms apply.
Hi, I'm back. I just set a personal best on my park run. Feels great.
That's lovely, Mike. I think you've earned the right to put all the bins out.
Hey?
With Vitality Life Insurance, you get properly rewarded when you're active. In fact, you could save over £730 every year in discounts and rewards from our partners. Join over 1 million customers. Just search Vitality Life. Vitality. Positively different. Annual savings available with certain plans and are dependent on members' usage of rewards available. Terms and conditions apply.
The Peugeot Professional Van range is the beating heart of businesses across the UK. Whether you're on the road with only your DAB radio for company or navigating tight spots with rear parking sensors, all Peugeot Professional Vans give your business that edge. Visit your local Peugeot dealership during our October van event from the 10th to the 31st of October and drive away with an exclusive finance offer. Master the impossible. Peugeot Motor Company PLC is acting as a credit broker, not a lender. Finance subject to status. Terms and conditions apply. Business users and over 18s only. Guarantee may be required. PSA Finance UK Limited.
Show capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Is there any bank right now in the U.S. that you think is a buy?
Do you think Chairman Powell has lost the market?
Jeff Bezos is no dope. What's the big ka-ching?
The big question, I think, for investors is free cash flow.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
The U.S. tariffs actually hurt both China and the U.S.
Large strategics are looking to either buy or invest in innovation.
Soybeans and corn have been basically at or below the cost of production for about 4 or 5 years.
What we see more bonds, more
you. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good Friday afternoon. We are broadcasting live from the Sooner Than You Think conference in Brooklyn, New York. We're focusing on all things technology. Coming up, Chief Technology and Sustainability Officer from DuPont. We will check in with her. Plus, we'll also speak to the former commissioner of the FCC, all coming up on Bloomberg. Right now, let's go to John Tucker for a Bloomberg Business Flash. John.
All right, thanks a lot, Paul. And as we look at the major averages, they are slightly lower right now, waiting for a decision from the Federal Reserve. The Fed chairman and his colleagues expected to cut interest rates a quarter of a point today for a third straight meeting. David Rosenberg over at Gluskin Sheff disagrees with a lot of market watchers and saying they won't be on hold after this.
We're just in the early stages of an easing cycle that ultimately will take the funds rate back towards zero and a whole lot of other aggressive policy measures because, my view is that the recessionary pressures are building in the U.S. economy.
U.S. economic growth slowed in the third quarter, expanding at a 1.9% pace. Household spending offset weakness in business investment and exports. The payroll provider ADP says businesses added 125,000 workers in the month of October, topping the prior month's gain. Services leading the increase, and small business hiring moderated. Of course, we get the big number from the Labor Department on Friday. And the Treasury says it's considering the sale of 50-year bonds as the budget deficit widens to $1 trillion. Bond dealers shrugged off an earlier Treasury proposal. Right now, the S&P 500 down about 3 points, 3,034. The Dow Jones Industrial Average 13 points lower at 27,055. And the Nasdaq Composite Index is 13 points lower. That's down 0.2 at 82.63. And we check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
Well, thanks so much, John Tucker. Right now, let's take a look. It is Fed Day.
It's Wednesday, too.
It is Wednesday. I hear it's Wednesday. And let's get some insight on what to expect from the Federal Reserve, not with the rate cut, which is almost a sure thing today, but with respect to guidance going forward. Steve Matthews joining us, Bloomberg News reporter in Atlanta. So, Steve, what do we think we are going to get in terms of guidance with future rate cuts from the Fed today?
So we should get some kind of indication of a pause. This is the third cut in a row. It brings cuts to 75 basis points, and the expectation is that there would be some kind of hint of a signal that we would pause here. And so either in the statement or in the press conference from Powell that there would be some kind of indication that we hold off from here.
So, Steve, is there any chance out there in your mind that, given the data that's out there, we had a little bit better than expected GDP, that they might kind of surprise the market and just say, you know what, things are pretty good, we're going to sit tight for a little bit?
The GDP was good today. We have growth of almost 2%. The ADP numbers were pretty good. The expectation of economists in the Bloomberg survey is that there's a 70% chance of a cut and maybe a 25% chance of no change. But the expectation of market odds is 97% odds of a cut, and that seems very likely that that will be the way they will go. But I guess there's a small outside chance, and this will be a very contentious meeting because some of the hawks on the committee, people like Esther George and Eric Rosengren, will argue very hard that you don't need a cut right now.
So we've heard over and over again the Fed is data dependent. I'm becoming increasingly less clear, if that's not a thing, about what data they're actually looking on. Do you have a better sense? Is there a clear sense of clarity for you?
I think it's less data dependent now than more looking at the risks. And the risks are that you have a manufacturing slowdown, you have trade wars still going on, you have Brexit still out there, global growth has been slowing and continues to be marked down.
Solar flares.
So you have all these risks going on, and I think they are focused on risk. But, the stock market is near an all-time high, and the U.S. economy is doing very well. So it's like that would argue for no cut. But the people this is all about risk management. This is not about data dependence. There's an argument at the Fed between those who are really focused on data dependence and risk management, and the risk managers are winning right now.
So, Steve, at one point, not so long ago, there was a lot of talk about this Federal Reserve and maybe even this chairman as being really unduly targeted by the White House and might be influenced by the White House. We haven't heard much of that talk recently. What's the thinking there?
Yeah, I think most Fed watchers say that the influence of the White House is very minimal, that it really is something people talk about, and the Trump administration is focused on the Fed, but the Fed kind of considers it as noise and just blocks it out and does what they think is right. And until there's evidence that they are influencing policy, I think you have to assume they're just doing what they think is right.
So how contentious is it at this point? How fractured is the FOMC?
Well, in the September dot plot, when they did estimates of what was going to happen with rates, you had 5 people who were opposed to the September rate cut. You had five additional who thought there was no need for any additional rate cuts. So it's very split. And in fact, it may be a minority view that you need to cut again here today, but they will probably go ahead and do it anyway, just because if Powell and Clarida, the vice chairman, are forceful in saying we need to cut, they can get a majority vote. But there are not a lot of happy campers among the Fed presidents.
So, Steve, as we've started off this discussion, it's really about what Chairman Powell, says in the statement and in his Q&A. As it relates to 2020, is the expectation for, given that the economy is pretty decent, that are we trying to bake in that one cut will be enough in 2020, given the current data?
Markets have put in one cut for 2020. But if you look at the history, Powell is very much views Alan Greenspan as a mentor and refers frequently to Greenspan. And in 1995-96, they did 3 cuts and stopped, and then the economy continued to do pretty well. In 1998, they did 3 cuts and stopped, and then the economy continued to do well for some period of time. So I think that the playbook suggests they do 3 cuts and stop. And, if things start to look a lot worse, then you could get into a cutting cycle that would push it down to 0 again next year. But I think, their presumption is that they're not going to need to cut again.
Steve Matthews of Bloomberg News, thank you so much for being with us. And just a note that at 2 p.m., when we get that Federal Reserve decision, we will have live coverage on Bloomberg Radio and Bloomberg Television, going through both what the statement has to say as well as, of course, the Q&A, which will be pivotal in determining the view forward. Today, we are seeing yields a little bit lower after the GDP. Actually, the GDP report came in actually better than expected, but still lower.
Yep. So again, and that showing the consumer once again kind of the strength, and the manufacturing and business investment also showing continued weakness. And
I do want to bring you this breaking news that the China deal time frame is unchanged despite Chile's APEC cancellation. This according to U.S. officials. So there was a little bit of doubt being priced into the market after the announcement of the cancellation. And the question is, how much are they going to actually discuss or get done at that meeting?
Right.
Still on the table, but the U.S. trying to take the risk of this meeting not happening off the table.
Right. And that was a concern. I guess it's not so much a question of where it gets signed, but when and kind of what's in that agreement. So the rhetoric that we're getting is that progress is being made, and expectation of a phase 1 type of agreement could certainly be in the coming. So we'll certainly pay attention to that going forward. forward, right now, markets, as Lisa just mentioned, pretty much unchanged right here. S&P down 2.5. This is Bloomberg.
You're not supposed.
It's another Wednesday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to see spectacular coral reefs and white sand beaches. Fly from London Gatwick to Mauritius with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £949 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Which Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters in New York, I'm Bob Moon. Acting Homeland Security Secretary Kevin McAleenan leaves his post tomorrow, and today he gave in to the mounting pressure from House Homeland Security Committee Chairman Benny Thompson to testify before leaving on the challenges his department is facing. Thompson has been very vocal about his concerns of who will follow the latest fill-in for such a vital cabinet position.
And even though Acting Secretary McAleenan is leaving tomorrow, from what I understand, the president has yet to announce who his replacement will be.
McAleenan's successor will be the sixth person to hold the post during President Trump's less than 3 years in office. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer is asking the Army Secretary for a briefing on what he's doing to protect Alexander Vindman, a lieutenant colonel detailed to the White House who testified yesterday in the impeachment inquiry. Schumer wrote Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy after Democrats accused Republicans of attempting to expose the identity of a whistleblower who filed the initial complaint about President Trump's dealings with Ukraine. Boeing Chief Executive Dennis Muhlenberg faced questions from the House Transportation Committee on the decisions management made on how to design a 737 MAX with a new computerized control system. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports from Capitol Hill.
Chairman Peter DeFazio ticked off a number of safety recommendations from engineers that were not incorporated in the final design or the training manuals, but are now among the planned improvements.
Flight control will now compare inputs from both sensors. Why wasn't it that way from day one?
Mr. Chairman, we've asked ourselves that same question over and over. Back then, we knew everything that we know now. We would have made a different decision.
Congressman Sam Graves, a licensed pilot, said airplane makers should take account of the lesser skills and experience of pilots in foreign countries. On Capitol Hill, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
Global news 24 hours a day on air and a TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Bob Moon.
And thanks, Bob. I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash. Not a great deal of movement in U.S. stocks today as investors on hold for a rate decision from the central bank. The Federal Reserve widely expected to lower rates today for a third time this year. Tony Crescenzi is a portfolio manager at PIMCO.
Markets looking at the Fed, and the Fed's looking back at the markets, and they have to mirror what the markets are doing. So the probability of what the markets have in for a hike is 90%. That's too high for the Fed to say no today.
On the earnings front, Yum Brands, Molson Coors slumping after reporting results. General Electric, that got a pop after raising its forecast. And Mattel, the toy maker, soaring after a sales beat. Apple and Facebook, they're going to report after the close of regular trading in New York today. The nation's largest general farm organization, the Farm Bureau Federation, says U.S. farm bankruptcies in September surged 24%, the highest since 2011. It comes from strains from President Trump's trade war with China and a year of wild weather. S&P 500 right now 2 points lower. We're at 3,034. The Dow Jones Industrial Average 8 points lower at 27,062. And the Nasdaq Composite Index is down 13 points at 8,263. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
We are broadcasting live today from the Sooner Than You Think conference. We are so lucky to have with us Dr. Alexa Dembeck. She joined DuPont in 1991 as a research chemist. Currently, she is Chief Technology and Sustainability Officer for DuPont. Can you give us a sense, Alexa, Dr. Dembeck, of what your role actually entails?
Oh, great question. I have the best job in the company.
Okay, we're done now. No kidding. Go on.
What my job entails is helping our businesses to be successful in driving innovation and sustainability together to meet the needs of our customers, to solve big problems, and to drive growth for the company and make a big difference for society. So a really important role in the company, and especially now that we're launched as a brand new company.
Talk about the brand new company, because when I think DuPont, I think chemicals. Am I not accurate there? Because I'm thinking sustainability with my understanding of DuPont seems like they might be at odds with one another.
Well, we're a brand new company now. In June, we just finished our merge with Dow, and we spun out 3 companies, Dow, Corteva, and DuPont. In the new DuPont, we're focused on driving innovation for specialty products and specialty materials. So we're aimed at big areas that you would know. Things like health and wellness, connectivity and mobility, safety and urbanization. So it's not a chemical company anymore. Specialty materials aimed at big world-scale challenges.
Have you come up with cloth that can make people invisible yet?
I'm working on that.
Really?
Let's do that. Wouldn't that be fun? My kids would love it.
Yeah. Seriously. What are some of the innovations that you're most excited about right now?
Well, one of the areas that's really important, and we've talked about it at the conference today, is the connection between technology and science for 5G. So today we've heard a lot about how is the world of data and digital and these tech startups driving change. 5G can change the world. Smart healthcare, smart education, connectivity. For DuPont, we make the materials that enable 5G to go to high speed, high frequency. So this is a great intersection of what the world needs to drive society forward and how science and materials really make a difference.
And how does sustainability, because I know you're technology and sustainability, I haven't seen that before, I don't think. I'm not sure on the corporate structure. How does DuPont think about technology and sustainability and then creating a role for you for that?
You know, it's perfect because they're both sides of the same coin. So technology and sustainability go together, especially for DuPont, because what we can do is we can make the biggest difference on sustainability, which honestly is solving the world scale challenges. We do that through innovation, through innovating in probiotics, through innovating in materials for 5G, through innovating in water, through innovating in protection. So the outcome of innovation drives sustainability, like the Sustainable Development Goals.
Well, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, when you talk about the innovation of plastic, that doesn't necessarily create sustainability from our current view of what's going on with oceans, et cetera. And I'm just wondering, with respect to some of the things that you mentioned, what are the key areas that companies could be active in that would be more sustainable in terms of the footprint that we have globally?
That's right. So we should look at sustainability not only as our footprint, but on the outcome of solving big problems. So from a footprint perspective, what DuPont's doing is driving climate action, reducing greenhouse gases. We just announced today in our new goals, we're going to drive a 30% reduction in greenhouse gas by 2030 and be carbon neutral by 2050.
How are you going to do that?
I think one of the key drivers is variable purchasing around renewable electricity, and then also making sure that our operations are as energy efficient as possible. So it's really clear that we can contribute. The other place, though, that it matters is how do we drive innovation so that, for example, automobiles can be electrified. Now, there is a big change in using greenhouse gases. Way overscales what we can do from innovating for cars versus what we do for our own footprint. And I think that's where it matters, the connection back to sustainability and innovation.
So we've heard goals about reducing carbon footprint from lots of companies and making commitments. One of the questions I always have is, how do you incentivize your people to do that? Because that making that pivot may not be the most profitable, certainly in the near term, for a business unit, or if I'm the CFO or the CTO. at the corporate level? How do you incentivize that?
Yeah, so we all know that good sustainability drives profit and drives us to continue to be relevant with our customers. So we can't hire talent without having a really strong sustainability value driver. So we believe it's implicit. Our customers demand it, our suppliers recognize it, and the world needs it. So I think the drivers are all aligned. What we need to work on is what are the specific actions and goals, and that's what we announced today. We announced our goals, and I think that's going to activate this next round of specific action by all of our employees, and honestly, the broader ecosystem.
When you talk about 5G, I just want to go back to that. A lot of people think it just will make their phones faster, but when you talk about innovation around that, can you give us sort of the scope of how much this will transform our experience?
Absolutely. So let's fast forward. It's now 2030. Smart healthcare, smart education, smart mobility. It's all in place around the world.
But I mean, if you think about it, when I think of smart technology, smart medicine, I think of, a teleconference with a screen, right? How would that be different with 5G?
How it's different is that it does really allow it to happen in real time, real data transfer, and allow it in place.
It's another Wednesday afternoon, yet another windy day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and witness luscious scenery and calming waves. Fly from London Gatwick to St Lucia with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £739 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Fall in love with the brand new iPhone 11 Tesco Mobile. Take amazing photos with Apple's best ever ultra-wide lens camera. You can get the iPhone 11 for just $37.75 a month with no additional upfront costs. What's not to love? Search Tesco Mobile or visit us in store. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage contract. Subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin. With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price, just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum terms. Prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. Further terms apply.
Now the 3-1. And Springer hits it in the air, deep to left field, and you can kiss it goodbye.
MLB fans, you can hear every call of the 2019 World Series on TuneIn Premium.
And that ball's hit well. Left field, high and deep, that's got a chance, score!
The action concludes today with a winner-take-all Game 7. Will the Houston Astros or Washington Nationals be crowned as World Series champion? Listen live at 8 Eastern to find out. The 2019 World Series is on TuneIn Premium.
Innovation talent development is critical for the United States to stay competitive and to continue to be competitive into the future.
So what does the U.S. need to do in order to achieve that it's not doing currently?
The priorities say, and what I believe we need to keep doing, is drive diversity, drive inclusion, drive science-based emphasis, and make sure that we focus on problem solving. The problems of the future, they're really interdisciplinary.
But is this as far as curriculum and sort of the way that it's arranged in schools? That's part of it. Is part of this also the H-1B visas and sort of the opening up of certain talent coming into the United States, or is this really focused on just sort of changing the way that education is achieved?
I think the educational piece is important, and all the major universities right now have interdisciplinary programs between colleges within the university. To me, that's a huge proof point around the need for collaboration across disciplines to solve these big problems. That's what the world's going to. Certainly the U.S., this bioeconomy discussion was very focused on how do you do that. And within DuPont, we know that innovation comes not by having a monolithic group of folks talking to each other, but by having diverse perspectives. Diverse globally, diverse in talent, diverse in whether you're an entrepreneur or an external academic, right? And that's what we celebrate.
Well, I'm looking at DuPont. They have about 98,000 employees. I'm guessing a lot of those folks are technical in nature. Are you having problems attracting or finding the right talent? We've heard from the other companies, unemployment at 3.5%. It's really hard to find good talent. How about for you guys, speculating on your technology practice?
So the new DuPont's about 35,000 employees. And
DES.
That's right. The talent agenda, I think we've been very successful in attracting top talent around the world. And we do that, we're able to do that because colleagues are inspired by what the company's trying to accomplish. Talent becomes scientists and engineers because they want to have an impact. And that's why people come to DuPont, to make an impact. And that's what we're about.
Alexa Dembeck, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Alexa is the Chief Technology and Sustainability Officer for DuPont, the new DuPont. We're broadcasting live here from the Sooner Than You Think conference.
Yeah, I've got to say, honestly, the point about how we teach is such an important one. And I do have to say, full disclosure, I come from a household of educators. So this was a sort of ongoing discussion of the way that you train kids to sort of think about something and how it's sort of in contrast with some of the testing that we have and sort of some of the hurdles that you have to jump through. And as a parent, it's something that I think about too. It's sort of like what skills are you trying to instill in your child?
Right, and some of the skills that we're seeing, again, we're in a full employment economy, and we've heard from many business people that they have a very big challenge. When you see a CFO survey, one of the big challenges you'll see is attracting and retaining talent, and the right talent, particularly if you're going for some of these technology-driven companies like DuPont or some others coming up. So we are here at the Sooner Than You Think conference in Brooklyn, New York. It is hosted by Bloomberg, and we are coming up on some more guests coming up from this conference. More to come. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. U.S. stocks a little changed as investors await today's Fed rate decision. It's widely expected that rates will be lowered for the third time this year. The Dow is falling 20 points, S&P 500 down 3, the Nasdaq dropping 13. U.S. economic growth slowed in the third quarter, expanding at a 1.9% pace. Household spending offset weakness in business investment and exports. Meanwhile, payroll processor ADP says businesses added 125,000 workers in October, topping the prior month's gains. Services led the increase. Small business hiring moderated. And Bayer is facing a surge in lawsuits from people who claim its weed killer Roundup causes cancer. The crisis has cost Bayer more than $30 billion in market value since last year's purchase of Roundup creator Monsanto. Donna Wilson, Bloomberg Radio.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA/SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
You don't usually find the titans of finance, business, and politics sitting around together.
There's been this transfer of royal power and royal prerogative.
But amazingly, They're nearly all here every weekday.
Let's talk about their data. What are you looking for?
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow.
So where does the circuit breaker come from?
Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern.
He's got to respond, doesn't he?
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130.